because I've been on. I think we're live, guys. Yep, I've just hit live.
Oh, we are
so
live.
I have hit live, and it's a bit of a scrappy start. Look, hello everybody. And before we get deep into E3 stuff, I want to do what those classy fellows have been doing at E3 because it's important that we acknowledge the tragedy, I think, in Orlando that happened at the weekend. And it's definitely been a really dark cloud that's been hanging over everything that's been coming out at E3 over the last few days, and it's a terrible tragedy. And I just want to point out that, while we're thousands of miles away, we aren't that far away. For example, I have a really close friend who knew somebody who was killed in that nightclub at the weekend. And it literally does touch everyone, what happened. And it is disgusting and appalling, and it's great to see the levels of solidarity that have come out of this. Not just at E3, around the globe. Any decent person can admit that this is a disgusting, awful tragedy, and I just wanted to touch upon that at the start of the podcast because while we're a gaming podcast, we've always been kind of aware of things going on in the globe and the wider issues, haven't we? So I think it's important.
We are human beings. I think that's the thing.
Absolutely. If you guys want to say anything, go for it.
I was going to say, I'm glad you mentioned it because I wasn't sure whether it was something we were going to cover, and it did make, for me, because I watched a lot of the E3 stuff live, and it was a kind of strange experience with that news starting to come through on the Saturday morning, and then some of the sort of, presentations and stuff. You are watching a lot of kind of male power fantasies full of guns, and it just it did sit slightly oddly, and it made for a slightly weird experience. So I think it's good to address that because it certainly was something that was in my thoughts as I was watching a lot of this.
Yeah, I mean, I felt kind of sorry for EA in a way, that first conference on Sunday, and they opened up with Titanfall 2, which involves a lot of dudes shooting people in the face. And you're like watching this going,
No, I never make that connection. I don't know whether that's me being callous or insensitive, but I just don't see them as connected things at all. And a part of me thinks that when there's a tragic event like that, when there's some sort of terrorist atrocity, that my natural reaction is to rail against that and kind of block it out. And I think if you are preoccupied with these events and what they mean for the rest of your life, then that's kind of what the terrorists want, isn't it? So I don't know. It's a fine line between ignoring what's happened, which feels awful, but not letting it affect our everyday lives, because we should be able to move on from awful people that do awful things and kind of not let them into our psyche in a way.
I think it's important to acknowledge it, and I think I was watching Last Week Tonight with John Oliver at some point between all these conferences over the last couple of days, and he acknowledged it at the top of his show, but what he focused on was the hundreds and hundreds of people queued up at blood banks in Florida trying to donate blood, and that side of it. There's the positive side of humanity, not one psychopath's side of humanity. That's not the majority, and that's it. Unless you guys want to say anything else, I think we should, leave it and get into the conference, because we've got a lot to talk about. So let's do a quick change of gears and move into gaming. And we're going to basically, from about, I think it was about a week before E3, the announcements started to happen, and we're gonna run down them, and then we're gonna go through the conferences. And if you guys remember any of the predictions we made in the predictions podcast, because I don't, but if you remember any, and if they come up in the podcast as we go, by all means shout them out. I have not had a lot of sleep in the last few days, and I'm feeling it a bit today, so my memory isn't the best. So let's just see what comes up. So let's.
I'm just going to call it right now. I predicted all of this shit.
Everything.
Everything of it.
I'm not going to deny it.
Tell me I'm wrong.
Should we do, before we get into it though, should we do we need to show off our t-shirts for the day, because that seems to be a thing we do at BXB's Bits and Bobs. So we'll start with Adam.
So I'm wearing a black t-shirt. It's just a normal black t-shirt that is just black, and it is a t-shirt, and it is normal.
That's good. Richard, what t-shirt have you got?
Adam's playing the post-game unfinished Swan t-shirts.
Yeah, why not?
I've got my new Banjo-Kazooie t-shirt, new this week.
Very nice.
And I thought it's my most E3 2016 related T-shirt. I decided to get out the old Watch Dogs 1 T-shirt here, which is as close as to Watch Dogs 2 as I could get, though far less funky. But we'll talk about that, I'm sure, as we get along. All right, so the first thing that sort of happened in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, was Microsoft announced and then brought out for preview members the new dashboard update, which I've been using. It's buggy, like even by their standards, it's buggy. The store is broken. I can't purchase anything on the Xbox. I can't play certain games half the time. For a while there, I couldn't play any Blu-ray player movies at all because the app didn't recognize that it existed on my console. And these were all common issues, not just like specific to mine. So that's the nature of this of being in that program. You know, swings and roundabouts. On the other hand, they've vastly improved the My Games and Apps section, and I can now actually look at all my games and browse through them in a far more user-friendly sort of experience than it was before. So that's nice to see. Richard, are you in it? I can't. You said you got invited, but you didn't bother.
I am in
something? You are in it. You are.
No, you've made that up. That's your sleep talking. Yes, I am in it. And my initial impression was same as you. Store is great. Cortana, not so much.
Yes. Well, you have to basically reteach yourself how to actually communicate with the Xbox, which is a bit.
Well, it doesn't work. It doesn't
and that
work.
as well. Yeah, it doesn't.
A lot of people would say Kinect never worked, but in my experience, I've been using voice commands on Kinect since Xbox One launched without any real issues. I think the reliability was down to the limited list of commands that it was able to use. That works pretty well. Now Cortana can hear anything that you say, and it seems to dilute the accuracy of what you're actually trying to get to. A lot of it just doesn't work. I've not yet been able to turn my Xbox off successfully.
Yeah, that's a common fault that seems to be for everybody. It doesn't. Yeah, turning it off doesn't work basically at all.
Yeah, but the most annoying thing is that because I've got a Windows phone, that listens to me more than the Xbox does. So I constantly get messages on my phone saying, Xbox turn off. No, you aren't an Xbox phone. Don't listen to that.
I had it the other day because I've been on the laptop so much, obviously, with the conferences. I usually put it in sleep mode or turn it off or something, but I've had it left it on, and I was trying to talk to the Xbox, and I could hear in the background in the other room my laptop responding to my commands, and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. So I'm not sure it's the best solution yet, but yeah, it's incredibly buggy. And like I said, this new store layout is nice, but the fact that none of it works, like you can't buy things, is a fairly important aspect of a store that currently isn't, what it should be at. So yeah, not
I'm not sure. Is that the update though? Because they did have store problems last week or week before.
No, that's the update. Yeah, I mean, I'm a regular user of the update forums, and everybody's having lots and lots and lots of problems. Because I actually try and leave feedback and actually do the beta tester thing, because I figure if I'm gonna, put myself through this, I might as well try and help others a bit. And yeah, it's a common problem. Right, but that's.
The quests on the what's it called? Like a beta access.
The preview app response.
Yeah, the preview app. I've done the quests in there, but not the forum stuff so much.
That's fair enough. Let's move on. So Persona 5 got a US launch date, and everybody got really excited. And I felt like I had to point out that with a game like this, that US launch date doesn't mean we're going to get it in Europe at the same time, due to the amount of localization that's required for the European market. So they have to make it in French and German and Spanish, and well, they'll do Spanish for the US as well. So yeah, we won't be getting it, I don't think. It's on that date, which is February the 14th. I would expect another couple of months for us, but I really want to play that game. It's probably the only JRPG series I really enjoy.
We'll get it early if Brexit happens, though, right?
Well, I suppose that's possible. I suppose.
Do you know, I wouldn't like to predict, but knowing how European publishing works, it's possible that Brexit would mean we'd get games even later. or we'd pay more for them. It could get complicated.
I suspect we would pay more for them. I suspect we'll pay more for a lot of things. But yeah, let's save that for the Brexit podcast coming later on in the month. Save that for the Brexit podcast. But I mean, that's not a lot of news. That's a little thing, mate. It's a little announcement. I know there's a lot of excitement over those games. I'm really eager to play it. I think it looks like their visual design is just the best. So, am I the only one that has a big love for Persona?
I like Persona 4, but it's so huge and impenetrable. I have to say it's been sat on my Vita for probably the last... How old is it? Probably a couple of years old, isn't it now?
It's been out a while, yeah.
Yeah, so probably 18 months I've not touched it, and it's one of those that I want to go back to and secretly know I never will. So probably won't try Persona 5, sadly. You need to have a lot of time for that game, although it looks like it would be worth it if you had the time. Adam.
I claim hyper nerd points because my JRPG of choice is the Disgaea series. So Persona is far too lightweight for my tastes.
Are you more into those JRPGs where you can like fondle people?
Not so much those. Have you ever played a Disgaea game?
I know the name, but no, I've never played one. I don't think. No.
So just to give you a flavour of it, you have a sort of story quest that you go through, but along the way you can enter a secret random dungeon inside every item in the game. There are 100 levels to this dungeon, and each level you complete levels up the item by 1 point. And within those dungeons you can find additional special secret items that contain 100 level dungeons in their own right. And it's just the most insanely infinite game. I played Disgaea 2 for I think 600 hours, and at that point I was about halfway through the main quest line.
Jesus Christ.
They are the most bottomless game ever imaginable. They're just insanity.
Okay. Value for money then. Very
good
yes. Value for money. Yes, very good. And a bit of news I was excited about, and Adam, I know you've played this game already, but I don't have a PC good enough, so I'm looking forward to this. But in September, XCOM 2 is coming to consoles.
Yes.
So that's pretty cool. I'm really looking forward to that.
I hope they fixed the bugs it has, because on the PC I think they really got away with murder with it. Considering like Fallout 4 got a bit of a lambasting for being full of bugs, oh my god, XCOM 2 was worse. XCOM 2 had some serious problems at launch. I'd imagine they're mostly fixed now, but let's hope.
Fingers crossed, yeah. I mean, one thing I noticed is I haven't got who it is in front of me, but I noticed that they go into a port house for it rather than doing it internally. And I know with the original XCOM it was all done. I think it was all done internal.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So that can be better. It can be worse. I mean, it means the port house probably has more time to spend on the port, but at the same time they may not be as good as Firaxis. So. Yeah, we'll see what comes out of that. But I know I think the original XCOM is in Games with Gold, starting this coming week on Xbox, and backwards compatible as well. So I'm quite looking forward to playing that game on the console. But I will miss the thing that never came out was the expansion never came out for it. So it's a shame because it's a really good expansion actually.
It is a phenomenal expansion, and obviously, I mean, whinging about bugs aside, XCOM 2 is an incredible game. So yes, everyone look forward to that.
I'm definitely. I am very excited. In more announcement news that happened before E3, Agents of Mayhem was announced. The Saints Row guys. I want to say Deep Silver. Does that sound right? Volition, Deep Silver. Those guys.
Deep Silver are the Dead Island guys, aren't they?
Yeah, they're the publisher. But I'm just trying to remember who
right.
Actually develops Saints Row games. I'm looking. Yes, Volition.
It's Volition, isn't it? Yeah.
I was right. Yes. Yeah. So this looks like. Well, I'm not sure. This almost looks like a sequel to Saints Row because there's a massive nod to Saints Row at the end of the game, end of the trailer, I should say. So it kind of makes me think that the universes will be connected, but at the same time, it seems more like a cartoony comic book sort of actiony teen game, a little bit sort of different to Saints Row, moving away from the gang sort of criminal, that sort of thing, attitudes, and moving towards this sort of superhero. It's all set in South Korea. Which is interesting as well as settings go. It looked pretty cool though, the trailer, very nicely animated. Anyway,
I mean, to be fair, the Saints Row games have been getting increasingly more ludicrous as they go through. I think the last one had you playing as the President of the United States of America fighting aliens. So, yeah, comic book seems a good place for that to land.
I think I've just had to mute Richard because he's had to leave to answer the phone, as is the nature of live broadcasts. Poor Richard always seems to have a million things to do when he tries to sit down to do one of these. But yeah, Agents of Mayhem, I think that looks pretty cool. I mean, like you said, they've got more and more crazy and out there with the Saints Row games in recent years. Oh, he's back. I'm going to unmute him before he starts trying to talk because that will really confuse him. You are now. Oh no, I don't know how to unmute him.
So you know how to mute, but not how to unmute.
No, there's no button to unmute him. This is very bad.
Great power comes great responsibility, I think I'll find. Oh, there we go.
I've got the button.
You got a button, so I can mute you, but I can't unmute you? That's confusing. I don't know what that means. It's strange power I have in my hands there. Or lack of. Anyway, just saying, Saints Row 4, Got very sort of all those powers you got flying around because you were like in the Matrix and able to bend reality and all of that stuff. So it's early days, no gameplay yet, but exciting to see what comes from that. After that, we got Injustice 2 announced, and then following that we got a gameplay trailer as well. I was a bit. I mean, I'm not a big DC guy anyway, but I was watching that and I was like, this is cool. But the visual design bugged me, all the armor upon armor and all that stuff. And they have explained that as a gameplay mechanic, you're going to be basically getting loot drops after each match, which gives you like tech and gear, which you'll be able to use to upgrade and customize your version of Batman, your version of Superman, etc., etc., etc. Which makes you wonder how balancing is going to work in a fighting game such as that, when you're going to be able to customize to that level. So I don't know if either of you guys have played the first Injustice or give a crap about NetherRealm fighting games.
I played it briefly. It was quite cheap on PS4, I think, around release time, so I picked it up and had a quick go. Never really got into it. So there was something about the visual design of that as well. It just never felt quite authentic. And from how you're describing 2, it sounds like when He-Man figures started to run their course, and they started bringing out battle armor He-Man and just any old bollocks that wasn't regular He-Man just to sell a new one. I don't know. It just doesn't seem right that superheroes would be laden with layers and layers of armor. It sounds odd.
Yeah, I mean, when you saw Superman putting armor on, I was like, well, that seems unnecessary. Other than as a visual gimmick. But I mean, the first game, it was decent enough fighter. I mean, NetherRealm know what they're doing. They make, the Mortal Kombat games of late have been very, very good. And it's got a pretty deep roster, I have to say. Looking at that gameplay trailer, it starts off with Atrocious, the main Red Lantern, coming out with his sidekick Dexstar, which is a Red Lantern cat. I kid you not, it's a house cat filled with rage and vomits evil Red Lantern blood on people. So that's pretty cool. I mean,
delightful.
Yeah. Will he have his own little set of armor? I'm excited to find out. But like I said, I mean, for me, it's how they're going to deal with the balancing issue, with like loot drops and customizing and stuff like that. How that will work. Curious to see what they do. Curious to see. And then shortly following that, we got Watch Dogs 2 officially announced just prior to E3 when they did their own little stream and unveiled lots of information and stuff about the new game. And I'll tell you what, guys, I like Watch Dogs, but I think Watch Dogs 2 looks like they're addressing pretty much every criticism that first game had. Now, either of you guys played the first one?
Yeah, I played the first one a fair bit, but didn't quite get to the end. The idea of Watch Dogs 2, I suppose, I might be able to be sold on it, but I didn't bother watching this, to be honest.
You've not seen any of it from Ubisoft or anything, no?
No. Sell me on it. Tell me why it's good.
All right. It's a completely new lead character. This is
it's a black man, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if that's what we want to focus on, it is indeed a gentleman who is black.
I can't believe it's that.
I know. I'm shocked. It's not another white guy. Frankly, I'm disappointed. And now, what's next? A black woman character? I mean, that's it. I'm out of games if that happens. That's it. I'm done. Just gone. Can't have that. Jesus. But yeah, it's a black guy called Marcus, and he's basically, there seems to be a little bit like they're taking themselves less seriously. So they're going to have a bit more of a group vibe. There seems to be more of a team thing going on. They're putting a bigger focus on DedSec, which is their version of Anonymous. And they're going to be basically like trying to fight the evil corporate overlord Facebook, which is manipulating everybody in the game to like vote for people they want and install puppet politicians, and so there's I was watching the trailer and the announcement trailer and the gameplay, and I'd say there's some definite like Mr. Robot influences, and there's things like I also picked up, I think, a vibe like Hackers vibe about it, if you remember that amazing 90s film.
It definitely reminds me a bit of Hackers. Definitely like they've been hitting the DVD pretty hard on that one.
Yeah, and that's
what's Mr. Robot?
Have you not seen that? It's a very good TV show. You should definitely check that out. It's how have you not seen Mr. Robot? It's fantastic. But anyway, check it out. Honestly, it's on Amazon, and I think it's on normal TV as well. Really, really good. What else? It just looked. It looked like they've ramped up the combat. His signature weapon in this is a billiard ball on the end of a bit of like rope, which he smacks in people's faces.
That's like his primary weapon.
That's like his primary melee weapon. Yeah,
that's
obviously.
A choice.
Very good, very good. Clap, clap. Ball, billiard, ball choice. See what he did there. Very, very good.
Not intentional, but I'll take the credit.
Yeah. But no, I just think the way they're positioning the character, they're kind of, it's San Francisco. There's the new city setting. It looks amazing. They're opening up all the hacking abilities. You're going to be able to hack everyone, all the vehicles. It's far less restricted to just being able to hack and manipulate certain things that are sort of story and mission related, like it was in the first game. And I just think it looks infinitely cool. Everything from the way the trailers were put together and the music choices and the just looks far more, they seem to be going more into hacker culture and less sort of just normal vigilante bullshit, which is what the first Watch Dogs was. And I'm that kind of stuff just seems exciting and interesting and different. So I'm well up for that. I think it looks cool as fuck.
I thought it was a focus on like pedestrian activity now, because there's quite a lot of driving around, wasn't there, in the first game, and bad cars.
Hard to say, because obviously we've only got one piece of game footage. He does drive a car in it, but then the majority of the mission is a kind of infiltrating a penthouse and putting a bug on a phone and kind of almost like stealth gameplay. I thought it was interesting that on the video of it, the opening line spoken by the narrator is, "This demo is not scripted." I think it says something that you may have done some damage to your franchise when you have to open your sequel gameplay footage with that phrase. No, honestly, this time it's the truth. Like, yeah, this isn't just pre-canned bollocks now. This is real. But maybe in the time they've had since announcing the first one, they've actually been able to kind of make the game they were suggesting they were making, which it does look like.
That's that thing. That first game had such a protracted dev cycle, and it so massively missed what was promised that it finally looks like they're actually being given the opportunity to make that game that they originally actually wanted to make, instead of turning it into Batman, kind of bullshit, which is what that first one really felt like a lot of the time.
Well, still, it still makes me roll my eyes when a game where you're supposed to be this kind of hacker and a geek and a nerd, and then as soon as the mission goes a bit wrong, it's gunplay and beating people up and stealth takedowns. I don't know. I think it would be a more interesting world if you really were a hacker, not like your standard action hero.
Escape from the authorities, like
you know what I mean. Like, I don't know. It felt like a disconnect when the guy starts beating up armed guards and trading bullets with them.
Well, I don't want to be a cynical bastard, but I think there's a large degree as to why the character is a black guy, because supposedly he's meant to be from he's meant to be from the hood, just to be like a complete cynical arsehole. He's meant to be this mixture of like ex-gangster turned IT kind of like into computer culture and social media. But you've got to remember now, the difference I think is that in the modern day, every young person is far more connected into technology, and they understand sort of social media and that kind of aspects of technology in a far deeper way than maybe they did 10, 15 years ago. And I think that's what they're trying to get across, is that he might not necessarily be a hacker, but he understands how to use the tools that are given to him in those situations. As well as being capable.
It's the dissonance between the violence and the hacker scenario is lessened because he's black. Did you just say that?
Pretty much. I think there's a real cynical reason as to why he's a black character. Yeah. I mean, they've actually said they've said his origin is from, I can't remember. There's this particular part of San Francisco which is more deprived and that sort of thing, and not as tech savvy, and that's where he comes from. So he's this mixture of the cultures of San Francisco come together to be this character.
If those facts about his personality are used as the justification for why he's excellent with weapons, I have issues with that.
Oh, it's a video game! Logic doesn't really apply. Next thing we saw, before, we've still not got to the conferences yet, but yeah, Deus Ex Mankind Divided, which isn't that far off, which has actually come in August. As most of these games are either 2017 or towards the end of the year. But yeah, Deus Ex is just popping around the corner now, a couple of months. They showed off about 20 minutes of sort of hub gameplay. You're wandering around and getting to places. Did anybody else play the previous Deus Ex game?
Yes.
Human Revolution, I want to say.
How far did you get?
I finished it personally. I really liked it.
I finished it like 3 times.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I really obviously I was obsessed with the first Deus Ex, and then I played Deus Ex 2 Invisible War and was less obsessed with that, although more obsessed with working out why it was so terrible. And so when Human Revolution came out and turned out to be pretty damn good, not quite the first, although the first probably has aged badly. It's probably one of those rose-tinted things. But it didn't feel like the huge sea change in what was possible that the first one did. But it was great. It was really great, and it was the right sort of tone, and it had all the sort of ingredients I wanted from a Deus Ex game. So yeah, I played it to death. As a consequence, I can't really offer any insight into the next one because I'm completely on a blackout on it. I refuse to learn anything about it. I want to experience it completely fresh. So I can't really offer any comment about it.
It looks a lot like the previous one.
I imagine it will be.
Adam Jensen's back with his crazy built-in sunglasses and robotic limbs, all the limbs.
Is it worth going back to the first one now, do you think? Because that's another one that I got like sort of a third in and stopped.
I think so. I really like it, man. It's a cool game. Like a really cool game.
It's a cool game. It's definitely got some of the stink of the past on it nowadays, though. Like, it makes some demands of the player that modern games simply would not make. So it's a bit... It can be heavy going.
My beef with it was the age-old stealth problem of just wanting to do it perfectly, and the investment of time required to do that is just ridiculous. I think there was a particular issue with the last Deus Ex game where you could, is it like poison darts you use or something? You can use them to knock people out.
Yeah.
The idea is you can get through the game without killing anybody, but sometimes those poison darts do kill people, and you just have to double check whether they're dead or not, and then reload if they are. So I think that kind of finished the game off for me.
I think you're playing it wrong.
Yeah, I'd say. I think the problem exists between console and controller there, or whatever the phrase is.
Yeah,
keyboard and chair, but you don't use a PC.
That's me being a slave to the achievement list.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the way I played it was I'd usually start a situation trying to be stealthy and manage the situation and stuff, but then when it got loud, I'd pull out my big Magnum, which basically had turned into a rocket launcher due to the upgrades I'd given it, and just kill everyone. So I kind of played it in a mix of styles because it gives you that freedom to really kind of deal with situations as you wish and stuff. So I think you were being a bit too slavish to the achievements on that one. Yes, it's a cool game, and this is, like I was saying, that it has the saddest shower scene. This new footage that I've ever seen. Adam Jensen gets in the shower basically, and he's just like he's looking at himself, and he's like, I'm barely a human anymore. And there's there's almost a single tear that runs down his face, and he kind of wipes the mist off of the side of the shower and looks through at the player, and he's like, what am I? Who am I? Should I even be alive? And it's just moving, man. It's just beautiful. It's just moving. Yeah. But no, it looks like it's going to be awesome. Yeah. So
have you ever seen a picture of the art director from Deus Ex Human Revolution?
Oh, he's the same. It's him.
It's Adam Jensen. Yeah. He looks identical to Adam Jensen. He simply went. He literally walked into the office that morning and went, so Adam Jensen needs to look like a really cool, awesome dude. So I think he should look exactly like me.
It's that Sam Lake from Remedy is Max Payne. If you're going to make yourself a fucking badass, make yourself a fucking badass. I mean, if you could, you would. So that you can't fault him, really. I mean, I'd do the same thing myself. But we must move along. Mafia 3 had a trailer. I mean, I've never been a massive fan of the Mafia games, but this new one has gone to this setting with with a black protagonist. I know, calm down. Calm down, Richard. I know. Woo! Chill, man. But it's got this more of like 60s setting now.
There weren't even any black people around in the 60s, you idiot.
You just didn't see them because they were at the back of the bus, Richard.
I think you're getting your dates mixed up here, guys.
Oh dear, so offensive. But this is looking pretty cool, Mafia 3. I don't know if I'm gonna have time in October to play it, but I want to. I think it looks cool and different, and the idea of this different type of organized crime kind of gang, and this different setting and this different sort of time period rather than the typical kind of Prohibition era gangster stuff you had from Mafia 2. Did anybody else play any of the Mafia games?
I played the first one. up until the appalling race car driving section, which I think is where 95% of all players stop playing the game. It was fine, like it was quite good. It was, you know, like you said, a kind of Prohibition era GTA. I can't say I particularly want to play the second one though. Seems a shame because I think there'd be a really interesting game to make about the Mafia, but they always kind of end up pushing it down these Grand Theft Auto-y sort of lines, where I'd be much more interested in more of a sort of political bent to these sorts of things.
I only ever played the demo of 2, but it got a good reputation at the time, didn't it? There was a lot of talk about the world building and how, well, there's a famous bit where you go to prison for like 10, 15 years, and by the time you come out, the entire world has changed to contemporary types of car, decor. It's a completely different city when you get released. So yeah, that sounded like they'd done a really good job in building the timeline, the environments. So interesting to see what they do with a black man.
My overriding memory of Mafia 2 was Game sent me 4 copies of it by mistake, even though I never ordered it. So that's my overriding memory of Mafia 2. I don't think I ever actually really played it. I just remember taking them all back to Game and getting lots of money that I didn't deserve. So hey, thanks Game. Cheers. But other than that, I'm curious to see how it goes. But anyway, we must move on. There was also an announcement for the new Destiny expansion pack, Rise of Iron. Now, we've not had a price on that, but I'm assuming it's going to be like Taken King, so £30 to £40, unless, you know, Bungie have learnt their lesson, which I doubt because everybody bought it anyway, even though it was ridiculously expensive. And all we've basically been told about Rise of Iron is there will be more story stuff, there will be more strikes, there will be more raid, there will be more multiplayer. They showed a bunch of fucking concept art, which was lovely, but told us nothing. So, great. Basically, Saladin, the Lord Saladin from the Iron Banner multiplayer, he seems to be a major character in this. There's actually a new hub location on Earth, which is the first time they've done a new location on an existing planet. So that's kind of cool. You know, I actually went back and played some Destiny with a friend the other day. It still plays really great. I'm just bored of what's there. So, you know, fingers crossed this will freshen things up.
I'm not convinced, but then I wasn't before the last update, was I? And then when I finally got a chance to play it, because I got it for review, I was massively surprised. So I think it wouldn't take much to pull people back in, especially, you know, the people that have been with it this long already. It is a very old game at this point, and there's still lots of players still interested. So we'll see. I do worry that they're pushing it on a bit too long though, and maybe they'll just be a bit too complacent with the loyalty that they've got. Well, I've got visions of Rise of Iron, meaning there's like an ironing mini game or something.
They're treading water, aren't they? Because Destiny 2 has been delayed, so they're having to bring out this sort of like filler content almost. That's what I'm worried it's going to be, that it's not going to be really that good or substantial because it was something that they didn't really plan. You know, everybody's read all the stories about the tortured development of this point, you know, the terrible pipeline they have for development, the awkward engine, all the issues that they had with cutting content and delaying content, and how they had to cut back on all their original plans and change the story and change the structure. And it's amazing Destiny is as good as it is after the issues they've had, and it's only testament to how good the guys are at Bungie that it's come out in a half decent state in the first place and has such a massive player base. So I'm just, you know, hopefully when Destiny 2 rolls around, it's going to fix a lot of those problems and they'll be able to actually, you know, get where they always wanted it to be. So I'm just worried if Rise of, you know, it's just going to be another way for Activision and Bungie to take my money. But hey, we'll see, I guess. I'm sure I'll buy it regardless. So there you go. I'm a sucker. I take it you don't give a shit, Adam?
No. Destiny.
That's fine. That's fine.
I hate nice shooting stuff. Fine, great, have fun.
I, however, do know the next thing you do give a shit about, which was they showed off some. Well, IG had the exclusive reveal of some gameplay from Cuphead.
Yes,
and
they did.
It explains why Cuphead has been so long in development, because it's completely changed as a game.
Yes.
The only thing the same is the visual style, which is obviously the thing that captures a lot of people's interest. But originally, Cuphead was just a boss rush game, which I can actually confirm that, because I played that at EGX last year. And you know that's all it was. Is you just fight bosses and they're really really hard and you die and that's all it was. Yeah. And now it's become a proper Mario-esque side-scrolling puzzle, well not puzzle, action game, like the typical kind of side-scrolling platformer. But with that amazing visual style, and it still looks fucking hard based on that video.
I did see, like, when it was a boss rush game, I'd started to wonder. I'm excited about it just from the visuals, really. And I'd seen some gameplay footage of, like, a journalist playing it, and it looked like the hardest and least fun game ever made. It was beautiful to look at, but I was just literally just watching him die over and over and over to the same bullshit, undodgeable attacks again and again and again. So it's good that it's now a platform game. Tiniest, most pathetic whinge ever, but in the footage they've released for it, the dust cloud that kicks up every time you start to move gets really annoying. Like, they need to cut that effect, I think. But yeah, it still looks great.
The dust cloud. Okay. I didn't even notice, but...
No, I did.
I can't say I noticed that, but I did have my own problems with it. I mean, this is something that I should love, but I don't know, I feel really worried that it's just not going to be that good a game. We're all being dazzled by how brilliant it looks, and it does look amazing. But I think what we originally saw when it was all bosses and big enemies and it all looked beautiful, I think that probably masked some of the issues that there were around how hard and probably not very much fun it maybe was. Now it's more of a vanilla platformer. The cracks in the gameplay are starting to show a little bit for me, and it just looks a little bit by the numbers. And doesn't look like it particularly flows that well, and it's built more around the aesthetic than it is a functional game. So it's got to do something to convince me, I think.
I mean, I can confirm that it is that when I played it, I didn't enjoy it. It's just not my type of game in the slightest, and I can respect the craft that's gone into those visuals. But they do nothing for me as an art style. I don't find it that compelling at all. It's just not my kind of visuals at all. I don't particularly have like a strong nostalgia for that era of cartoon animation. It just doesn't really do much for me. But it's never going to be my kind of game. I don't have a sort of a long-standing love affair with those kind of platforming games, so I lasted about 45 seconds when I played it, and I was just like, I put the controller down and went, "Do you want to carry on?" And I went, "Nope, I'm good," and I walked away. So I'll go play. I think I went and played Super Hot instead, which turns out is awesome. But anyway, let's move on, and then we've got some interesting news here because the next announcement definitely will roll into when we talk about the conferences shortly, which is that Sony came out and said the PS. Richard, what are you doing, Richard? What are you doing, Richard?
It's the professionalism. That's what I come to this podcast for. The professionalism.
Like, God damn it, man! Move your bloody mic! Oh, God. I tell you, next time we do one of these, I'm just going to be quietly whacking one off under the desk, and there'll just be the odd.
Oh, have you not done that already?
Vibrations like this, just going the whole time, and you'll be wondering why. What's that? What's Ben doing?
I don't remember ever seeing PewDiePie feeding his dog live on stream.
Well, that's why PewDiePie. Nobody likes him. I mean, that's what it's all about. Nobody likes PewDiePie. Who's that?
He's real.
Look, we're the new guards. He's past it. Nobody even cares anymore. What's he got? He's only got like a few 100 million subscribers. Like, whatever. He needs that.
What? All those millions in the bank. Like,
yeah, Jesus Christ.
Anyway.
But I was saying, so Sony came out and said the PlayStation 4.5, the Project Neo, whatever you want to call it, it's real, but it's not going to be at E3, which was a bit of a surprise when that came out. But I don't think we'll dwell on that too much right now because it's definitely going to come up when we talk about the Sony conference, which will be happening shortly. And the final thing I wanted to mention is because I can't talk about it, but I'm currently playing the game that it got an E3 trailer, Technomancer by Focus Home Interactive, and I think they're called Spiders, the developers, and that's coming out on the 28th of this month. And like I said, I can't talk about it, but it's a cool trailer, so watch the trailer, I guess. Yeah, why not?
Good.
Yes, but now we are now there, guys. We are now actually going to start talking about the conference.
Have we reached E3?
We've reached E3.
40 minutes.
It's only 40 minutes, and we've got to the actual start of the conferences. And like we said right at the very, very top of the show, EA had the unenviable task of going first after the events of Saturday, and then also on top of that, and because I moved it a little bit, is the Titanfall single player trailer that they kind of opened the show with Titanfall 2. The single player trailer was leaked just prior to the show, so it really took the wind out of that initial spot for EA, and I felt really bad for the Respawn guy. Was it Vince or Zampella? I can't remember which one of the two of them it was, but it was one of the new guy, one of the guys who were ex Call of Duty and Infinity Ward. And you know, the multiplayer looked a lot like Titanfall, and it looked fun. And then the single player looked pretty weird and hokey. What did you guys think of the weird AI aspects of the Titan and how it seemed to be the main character of the story?
I liked that.
Okay.
I liked it.
That's deep analysis from Richard Morrill.
I never played the original Titanfall, so I didn't know if that was sort of a new addition to the canon of the world around it.
It's totally new, because the original Titanfall, there's no single player at all.
But also, are the mechs like AI entities, or are they just machines?
No.
Well, no, they kind of are, because they brought out a bunch of subsequent voice packs for Titanfall.
Yeah, but it was never a personality, was it? It was just like, here's a few samples, you know?
I think there's enough freedom in there for them to play with that, but it did feel like maybe Titanfall 2 is set further into their timeline, so maybe the AI of the Titans has evolved and developed.
But all this stuff about binding a Titan to a pilot, that was never, at least it was never explicitly covered in the first game. It was just a case of, right, press down, your Titan comes down, you get in it, that's it. You know,
Yeah.
No binding involved. You smash one up, then you get another one in 3 minutes. Fine.
And often a different one. I mean, you weren't stuck to one Titan. You could different varieties of them and different, you know, for different situations and all kinds of things. So I thought it's an interesting narrative choice. I was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, this is. What did you guys actually think of the trailer for the single player? I didn't think the beats were that brilliant, but I'm interested enough to play it. That's for sure.
I'm just glad that it's there, because I think it's still going to live on its multiplayer, and Titanfall 1 absolutely did that. It didn't need a single-player campaign. So even if it's just meh, that's enough. It doesn't need to be amazing. But it would just be interesting to just get a little bit deeper under the story aspect of of what Titanfall is and how that world has been built. Just be interesting to have a flavour of it, that's all.
I think it's an interesting positioning decision. I think obviously they wouldn't choose to add a single player campaign unless they thought it would help sales, and so they must feel like perhaps one of the reasons Titanfall didn't do as well as they expected was that they didn't have a single player element, and that they need to cater to that market, which is just that sort of thing is interesting to me because it gives you some insight into the data they must be looking at, because EA know what's going on with their customers.
There was a lot of vocal complaint around the time of Titanfall's release that it didn't have a single player component. But I think a lot of that was born out of what they communicated prior to release. They did intimate that although it was multiplayer only, it wasn't just going to be a regular multiplayer game. It was going to be built around emergent storylines, and the matches themselves would have their own sort of narrative arc, and that never transpired in any meaningful way. And there was a kind of mission structure, wasn't there, Ben, where there'd be regular matches, but there'd be sort of a start point and end point, and some dialogue would happen throughout the course of the match.
You'd get like radio chatter and stuff. So there were some narrative elements with certain characters, you know, that would be like your support characters and stuff like that. So, you know, you did feel like there was a bit of that going on. But I think the biggest problem Titanfall had, when you're talking about sales information, it was that it was stuck only on the Xbox. And obviously the Xbox at that point as well had a small install base, and it was already struggling against PlayStation. And you know, basically EA did this deal with Microsoft, and it was a deal even Respawn weren't aware of. If you remember at the time, it was like it wasn't their decision to go single platform. They wanted it on everything, because they wanted to sell a lot of flipping units. So I can imagine they were pretty pissed at the time about that happening. So of course now that's not the case. Now it's going to be PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. And yeah, I think it'll be cool to see the single player, and it's going to be really interesting because it's basically going to be going up against Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, almost at pretty much exactly the same time. So that's going to be, very similar kinds of games, and we got a demo of that at Sony's conference, which we'll be talking about later on as well. I wonder what you guys think of that. But yeah, so that was Titanfall. They showed the multiplayer, and what that trailer for multiplayer really made me think was, I wouldn't mind going back and playing some Titanfall. I might reinstall that and jump in again and see if anybody's playing. So
the multiplayer video made the game look incredible. Like it made me, man, I should have played this. This looks fantastic.
It is fantastic. It's a really amazing multiplayer game, and I'm not one for really jumping into multiplayer in any deep way. I've sort of like dip my toe in for a couple of days, and then that's pretty much me done, and I'll just go back to a single player campaign. But with Titanfall, I played that for a good few months before it dropped off. And
it was helpful at the time as well. There weren't many games.
There weren't that many games.
Yeah,
but so it was so well balanced, and all the modes. Probably the best capture the flag mode I've ever played, where it was just so to and fro between the different sides in every match that we played, and it was just frenetic, constantly full of drama, and there were moments of just brilliance in every game. It always felt fresh and like something exciting happening throughout every match.
If you're up for it, Richard, maybe we should play some of the Horde mode they brought into the game later on. I'd be up for jumping in for a little bit of that.
Yeah, I'd have a go at that. Yeah.
I'm going to reinstall it. Okay, so after that, they spent a bunch of time on, well, not a huge amount of time, but some time on Madden, which unless any of you, and if you are into your American football, shout now and talk about it. Otherwise, I'm going to just sort of skip over that.
Yeah.
It's just Madden.
I'm fine with that.
I thought the funniest thing was they did their Madden piece, talking about like the best Madden players in the world, and then they threw back to Peter Moore in London, so that the London crowd could all go, what, Madden? Why? Just look really confused and uninterested, which was, I thought, hilarious. And then they had that pro Madden player guy on the stage who'd broken his arm, right? So he's about to be in this big important Madden competition, one of the best guys in the world. He stood there with his broken arm, and Peter Moore walks over him and goes, "You broke your arm, you twat." Basically, I thought that was amazing. I love that guy. It was so just like, oh, you broke your arm. It's so funny. That was good. And then he had, I think, did they do the FIFA stuff next, or did they go? I think they did, didn't they? Would have done all the sports stuff together.
They did a sports block.
So the big thing with FIFA 17 is we've gone to Frostbite, which is EA's engine that's been made by DICE, so the Battlefield engine, and that's kind of, I get the impression, what they're trying to use from everything now, pretty much. And they brought in a proper story-based single-player campaign to FIFA, and it's called FIFA 17: The Journey, and you play as this guy. I think it was called Alex, and it's about his sort of being discovered, going into the Premiership. Basically you're playing it kind of like one of the story modes in the NBA 2K games. So like properly scripted with real characters. I'm kind of like, I don't hate football games, and I occasionally get the FIFA game and give it a go, just because I used to love them as a kid. And this new edition, it has piqued my interest a little, because it's a brave and different move for FIFA. So, what do you guys think?
It's not that different. I mean, it looks like it is, because it looks like they've actually delivered on what they've been promising for the last 2 years. But for a while, there has been a mode in there called Be a Pro mode.
Yeah, but it's not a scripted story, is it?
A single player on a team, and you sort of rise through the ranks. But wouldn't it be better if it wasn't a scripted story? I don't know. It felt weird to me, because I thought, is this really what your player base wants? Because what your player base wants is the wish fulfillment of, I get to play for Man United. Do I want to help some 17-year-old called Alex get to play for the champions of the world? I mean, I'm not sure.
The last time I had FIFA, it wasn't. I don't think I got 16, but I had 15, and I used Game Face, and I put myself in, and I rose up the ranks as Gillingham until they won the FA Cup. Yeah. And that's something. Yeah, I mean, the thing they've said with this is that this mode and stuff is only going to be available in the Premiership teams. So you'll only be moving between them. And the other thing they sort of showed off was that they've actually fully modelled like what, half a dozen managers now as well.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing because they're going to be in this journey mode. So it's kind of like, yeah, you bring up a good point. Is this what the player base wants? I don't think it necessarily is, but it's cool that they're trying stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm down with that. I mean, at its core, the game of football in FIFA will probably still be good because they know that's important. But it's a new engine, so it could suck and be terrible. You know, it's quite possible that they'll fuck it all up. That does happen. So.
Yeah. I mean, I have fond memories of the older FIFAs. I said the older FIFAs, anything from up to FIFA 15, really. Me and some friends from work were demons for the Pro for Clubs mode. We would play like for 3 hours pretty much every night, from like 10 till 1 in the morning. Really took it seriously. Got to Division 1 a couple of times. You know, had tactics meetings in the office at lunchtimes and stuff. Like, it was serious business. And so obviously, you know, each year the new iteration would come out and we'd listen very intently to find out what had changed and what they were moving around in the game. And the one thing I noticed from the EA conference this year is that this is the 3rd year running. Their list of improvements has been identical to the previous year. Now, I don't know if that means they just haven't nailed those things yet, or if they've just figured out those are the things that make players buy the game the most.
I mean, how many
year, improved physical play. Every year, overhaul of set pieces. Every year, more intelligent AI. It's the same list every year now, and it just sort of struck me as amusing, really.
Yeah. I mean, like, I get the impression from Richard's quiet demeanour right now, he couldn't give a flying fuck, and that's fair enough.
This is absolutely fair enough.
Yeah. So we'll move on from FIFA onto something I'm far more excited about, and that's Mass Effect Andromeda, which is also now using the Frostbite engine, and oh my god, does it look nice. So pretty. I get the impression with that game, though, considering how long it's been since it was originally announced and how little we just saw at this conference, that it's had a few development issues, and that I think they might have gone back to the beginning with that game more than once and started again, especially as it's now become a Frostbite engine game, which originally I don't believe it was.
Yeah.
So I think there's been some problems there, and I'm quite surprised we didn't get a date and we didn't get like proper gameplay at this E3.
Well, exactly. For the length of time it's been rumoured to be in development, and the talk of it has been bouncing around the industry, you would think they would have more than like a minute and a half of like 5 or 6 location kind of concept videos. You know, you'd expect to see some gameplay or some proper playable environments, and no, it did look like it's fairly early, so I think you're right.
I said at the earliest we're not going to see that until holiday next year, I would say, and that bums me out. But you know what we did see, if they can make the game look as amazing as that in actuality, will be a hell of a feat. I mean, like the way that Asari looked, her facial animations were amazing. We did get a couple of interesting tidbits of information. We got the information that the ship is the Tempest, and that the main character is going by the name of Ryder, which you saw the default female model at the end of that trailer, and that's, you know, if you don't do any customizing to the female appearance of Ryder, that's what she'll look like. And I thought it was really cool, actually, that it was the female model they showed off, because they realised a lot of people love the femshep. I thought that was really cool of them to do. I mean, Richard, you know, how did you feel about the Mass Effect trailer?
I think you're maybe giving it a hard rap if we're going along the lines that they've had to restart it and scrap it all.
I think they have.
I'm not sure, because the videos that we've seen before, they've not said that they're in-game or anything, and they've not said that they're Frostbite, because they were just pre-renders, weren't they? So why would they say what the engine was?
I mean, there was some leaked pre-alpha stuff that came out showing some gameplay, and it looks like, I think from looking at that stuff, that wasn't on Frostbite. It looked entirely different. If it was legit or not, I think it looked legit, but it looked very, very different to what we're seeing now. And I think EA have come in and gone, Frostbite's the engine now, guys. Deal with it. And that's cool. I mean, like, you know, I want this game to be amazing when it comes out, so they can take us on.
Well, that's it. I don't mind if it takes 2 years, because after the experience of Mass Effect 2, that was absolutely polished to perfection. I couldn't fault that game. Mass Effect 3, obviously, there was the big issues around the ending. they want to get this one back on form, get it absolutely right. So yeah, take the next year, take however long it takes. I don't mind.
And everything I'm hearing sounds really interesting. The idea of like we're in another galaxy, humans are the outsiders. We're trying to find our way in this completely alien environment. What they were saying as well about Ryder is that she's not going to, or she or he isn't going to be this self-assured hero. It's about the journey of becoming a hero. It's going to be an untested crew. It's going to be like being a part of that sort of experience, that narrative. I think has the potential to be absolutely fantastic. And they've also come out at E3 and said, yes, we have taken on board everything you said about the ending of Mass Effect 3. We promise it won't suck like that. So, they're really listening. And you have also got to remember as well, they lost all the people at the top of that studio pretty much, over the course of the last few years. So, it's not even clear who is actually running the project completely right now. It's certainly not somebody leading it like Hudson was in the in the Mass Effect days and stuff like that. Or I think it was a female, a woman as well. I can't remember her name, but yeah. So fingers crossed.
Why would you?
I said, same. Women don't make games; they make coffee. I mean, come on.
I just like to disavow any association with these gentlemen.
We're kidding, or are we? Right. After that, we got a little bit of waffle from them going on about an indie initiative, which isn't the first time they've done this, and how EA are going to make sure these indie guys get all the monies that they make. And then they announced a game called Fee. Something like that, and do you know what, that looked generic. That looked like generic indie game number 3, and it did absolutely nothing for me. That.
So I set myself there's a running gag throughout my notes where every time any of the big publishers showed an indie game, I've written the exact same comment next to it, which is, yes, very nice, but what is it? And I think Faye falls foul of that more than most, where you go, oh, this is a very pretty art style. What's the game though? Like, is it a third-person action-adventure? Is it a platform game? Is it a shoot-'em-up? Like, what is this?
Inside was the worst for that, but we'll get to that later.
We will. But that's very soon, so we'll actually be able to play that soon anyway. But yeah, and then we got, hey, we has all the fucking Star Wars bitches, which is my name of the set, but we's not bringing anything out yet, probably for a couple of years. Which was a bit of a bummer. So basically they did like a 4 or 5 minute long sizzle reel of, they went around and they checked in with all their different developers working on Star Wars, Amy Hennig and Slot and Respawn and the DICE guys, and it's like, yeah, we're making games. Games take a lot of money and time to make, so you'll get it when you get it. We had some really early footage from Amy Hennig's project, and they announced that there was going to be this we're not actually sure what this Battlefront thing coming this year is. It's later this year. It could be a standalone game. It could be like a DLC add-on to the existing Battlefront. But they're basically doing stuff that's going to be connected to Force Awakens and potentially Rogue One, and it's going to bring more stuff to Battlefront, which Battlefront needs. So that's fair enough. But everything else is 2017, 2018, 2019 in the far, far future. And I love my Star Wars, and it's cool that they're making these great games, and fingers crossed they will be as good as they could be. So that's all we have.
I think it's kind of a bummer that there's so many different studios involved in Star Wars, though.
Why would it be a bummer?
Well, Visceral, for example, it means no Dead Space for the next 3 years at least.
Yeah, I'm down with that. If you take into account the DLC that happened in Dead Space 3, they kind of finished that series. There's not.
It will never die.
I don't think there's much more they can do with Dead Space. So leave them to do Star Wars, and then you've got Respawn doing a Star Wars game. Their second team, Titanfall and Star Wars. That's a Christ no. I mean, they've said it's a third-person action game of some kind, but they showed some mocap going on with lightsabers, and yeah. It's going to be in an era that they said in an era that hasn't been done before. So that's like, yeah, I'm excited to see what that can be. But at the moment, it's all pie in the sky. Who the fuck knows? And then the EA, finished off the conference with Battlefield 1, which was Battlefield-y. It was actually very Battlefield-y, considering what that setting is. It's incredibly Battlefield-y, and I thought there'd be a bit more World War I in there, At the conference itself, they showed another lovely trailer, and it looked great. And then they had like a big multiplayer event afterwards, and showed off a lot of in-game footage there. And it looks like fun, maybe too much fun, sort of. I don't know.
Yeah, I do remember. I expressed concerns on the last podcast about that setting. This trailer did not reassure me. Woo, war is awesome. Look how great this is. And you've got like corkscrewing biplanes, strafing enemy positions, and all these sorts of things. And I just sort of think it's fine. Like, you've gone in a very kind of arcadey route to depict World War One, and that's fine. But if you're going to do this, like, you don't get to claim any moral gravitas later on. So like, we'll see what they do next. But you have made this into cops and robbers in trenches, and that's fine. But don't be coming with any like, oh, but also we're taking it very seriously.
No, I had the same feeling watching that Zeppelin going down and burning an entire village of people, and they're like, ooh,
looks so pretty when things explode.
Flames.
I mean, it did look great. I mean, that's one thing they showed off, like the early trailers, and they were touting them as in-game, and everybody was like, fuck off. And then you actually see it, and at least on PC, it did look that good. And the idea that you mentioned, the Behemoths, the Zeppelin, there's going to be a new type of game mode with, there's going to be like destroyers and stuff out at sea, and you'll be able to control them, and like, they're going to be almost like, control points that you can take out, and they're going to be like more integral elements to the game and stuff like that. And I think that sounds quite exciting from a multiplayer perspective, from a fun perspective. But like you said, I'm not sure how accurate to the time period. And they've just come out and said, right, factions not playable in Battlefield 1, Russians and French. And I'm thinking to myself, they were in World War 1 a lot.
Yeah.
So how are the Russians and the French not playable in Battlefield 1? And yet they have the Americans who were in it for about 20 minutes. So you're like, yeah, I guess you need to do it for your market. I understand. All right, sure. No French. Really strange that there's no French. But anyway, that was the end of EA. And I think to sum up, probably out of all of the conferences, it was kind of the flattest, with the least sort of announcements, with the least sort of exciting kind of things going on. It was one of the shortest ones as well. It was this weird year for EA. They're not at E3. They're kind of just down the road from E3, but they're doing their own thing. They had, like we mentioned earlier, this other sort of thing happening in London as well, where people who are in the know can go and play these things and stuff and get hands on. But it wasn't very good. I didn't think it was okay. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't brilliant.
No. I think they sort of shot their bolt. They just didn't have a lot of surprises up their sleeve, where all the other sort of conferences seemed to have at least one kind of, oh, I didn't expect that kind of moment. And EA, it was like, yes, these were all the games we were expecting. Good, all present and correct. On you go.
Yeah, that's a fair way of doing it. Anything you wanted to add, Richard, or we'll move on to Bethesda?
No, let's move on.
Bethesda. Now, these guys know how to start a show. They came out with Quake, and I was like, fuck yes, fuck yes. I even put motherfucking yes, I think, in the tweet as I was live tweeting this. I was slightly losing it. This was the first night, and this had started at 3 a.m. So I was already kind of not quite conscious at this point. So Quake comes on, I'm just like, motherfucking Quake! Screen grab, post to Twitter. And I was pretty excited. And then they said it was a PC-only exclusive, and I got a little bit sad. Sad because I know I'm going to have to buy a fucking good PC now, more than anything. Because Quake is the granddaddy of arena multiplayer shooters. It's the one thing, the game that made multiplayer shooters. And I want a new Quake. And look how well they've just done with Doom. I have all the faith in the world that Quake will be amazing. And it's called Quake Champions, and it just looked great. I mean, it was all CGI bullshit, but I don't care. It's Quake. It's gonna be amazing. It'll be at QuakeCon, obviously. They even joked. They said, like, well, of course we'll be at QuakeCon. It's QuakeCon. You've got to have Quake at QuakeCon. So I was like, yes, you do. I want more Quake. So anybody else love the Quake?
Did you get the impression, though? I'm not sure. I don't know how you'll feel about this, but from the way they structured the video they showed, I get the distinct impression that this is going in a kind of MOBA-ish direction with unique characters, with unique abilities, and they're trying to target in the sort of pro gaming kind of market.
It's possible, but that's not in my mind MOBA-ish. That's That's Overwatch. What you just described.
Well,
I mean, the idea of a character shooter in the Quake universe, I think, could work really well if they balance them as well as Blizzard has balanced Overwatch. And as Richard can attest, Overwatch is amazing. So if they get if they're as good as that, I think with the kind of distinctiveness of some of the characters you've already got in the Quake universe, I think that could be amazing. Make a fucking super violent 18+ unlocked. Unlocked frame rate, 120 hertz they mentioned at the conference, PC only shooter like that, and it'll be blistering. It'd be huge. I mean, that's the scene for shooters now. But if they're going to come out in that scene, they need to come out at the top of it.
Yeah, it's a crowded market they're hitting.
It is right now. Yeah, all of a sudden, all these games that wish they were Quake, and then Quake, the old granddad, is coming back on the scene. I can still do it, and it's like rolling up. Showing off its skills. Hopefully it'll be amazing. But like I said, there was no gameplay, so we don't know. But it was a cool way to start the show.
It was cool. It was a good surprise.
It was. And then they kind of went to the card game, and I was like, oh, okay, we'll chill now. We'll chill. We had the excitement, and now we're gonna Elder Scrolls Legends, which is an Elder Scrolls card game. I have very little to add to that, but cool, I guess. I mean, my favourite card game is coming up later, so I will talk about that in a bit. But I mean, Adam, you're the card game guy.
So I'm interested in this card game purely because I know one of the guys who's designing it. Not that I know him personally. One of the designers on this game is Luis Scott Vargas, who is the best Magic player to ever walk the earth. So it's interesting to me to see how he does as a game designer on this project. So I'm kind of interested in it on that level, but yeah, I don't know, man. Again, this Hearthstone marketplace is very crowded all of a sudden. There's a lot of people going for the crumbs off that particular pie, because I can't imagine anyone ever topples Hearthstone, because Blizzard own user interface design forever, and that's ultimately what a good card game needs more than anything else.
But I mean, Elder Scrolls are rocking up with an established universe which has already got a massive fan base.
Well, I'm skeptical. See, I've actually, one of the notes I made, because they go on to talk, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in a minute, some the Elder Scrolls MMO and stuff.
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
I think Bethesda give themselves a lot more credit than they deserve for people liking the Elder Scrolls universe. Isn't the Elder Scrolls universe really just Tolkien? And people accept it because they want to play, Lord of the Rings RPG, and they can't, so they play Morrowind or Skyrim, which was Game of Thrones, the RPG. It's really, really derivative. It's not. I don't think anyone's particularly invested in the cat people and the whatevers. It's just it just fills the slot. The Khajiit, yes. Do you know what I mean? I just don't. I'm big into the Elder Scrolls kind of games because they're always really good fantasy RPG games, but I can't say I'm particularly invested in the actual universe or world around it. It's very generic.
Okay. Well, like we said, we're gonna come back in a second anyway. And then after the card game, they threw to Todd Howard with a little video package. He wasn't there at the show.
Yeah, that was kind of surprising. Video package.
Yeah, but and he's like, here, look, Fallout. It's gonna have loads more DLC after you bought that season pass. So whoa, and it was like, oh, more stuff to build things, and then stuff to build a vault, and I was like, I don't care. And then Nuka-Cola World, and I'm like, okay, I can get into the idea of Nuka-Cola World. That could be fun. That could be cool. But I mean, again, no surprise with this announcement. They then went and it was like Skyrim Special Edition, coming to the consoles, coming to PC, full mod support on consoles, and it's coming this October, and it looks pretty. It
did look beautiful.
It did look stunning. Yeah, it looked really good.
I wasn't aware.
I'll buy it again.
I wasn't aware that volumetric God rays was part of the public lingo. I thought that was only, nerdy developer types would ever use that phrase. I was surprised when that was listed as a feature, because that's what we call them, but I didn't think the general public
I think you can.
with that.
I think you can thank J.J. Abrams and Lens Flare for making lighting kind of a thing people give a shit about. But I mean, that was like, yes, I will own Skyrim for the third time. PC, 360, and now Xbox One / PS4. I'll do it again. One cool thing they've mentioned is that there'll be if you've got all the DLC on PC, or if you have, I think it's the Legendary Special Edition on PC, which includes all the DLC, you will get a free upgrade to the Special Edition version on Steam. which is nice. I think that's cool. That's cool, isn't it? It's a shame they can't do the same for the consoles, but you know, it's cross-generational, cross-platform potentially. I can understand that would be a headache, and they want your money.
The console manufacturers would probably have something to say as well, because they do get a cut.
Absolutely.
So you can't go giving stuff away.
But there's not a lot to talk about. It's more Skyrim. Bringing mods to the console, I can tell you as somebody who's been using the Fallout mods on console, it worked. I mean, the first day it came out, and it was so like massively busy compared to what Bethesda, you know, it was anticipated. It was a mess. It didn't work. But now, yeah, it works really well. They integrate nicely. But you know, like mods on PC, it can break your game horribly, and that's just the nature of mods. So you know, pick the ones that have got good feedback would be my suggestion. But yeah, that's coming in October.
I also wonder if they've thought through the policing mechanism it might require, because on consoles I think you're a bit more exposed to, you know, my little child is playing this hateful, awful mod that you know adds explicit nudity and/or
there are no
sub themes to the game. You know,
there are no nudity mods allowed on console. I can tell you that Xbox won't allow.
So the mods are still vetted to some degree.
They are to a degree, yeah. And then after that, we moved on to, well, probably one of the biggest surprise announcements due to its nature. I mean, people were anticipating this in a way, but this kind of came out of nowhere. And
no one was anticipating this. Who anticipated this? No one didn't suggest this was going to happen.
I might have anticipated Prey 2 coming, but this isn't really Prey 2. This is something else wearing the name Prey. I mean, at the moment, fuck knows what this game is. I mean, it was a cool trailer. It came out, and at the end it was just, it's Prey. Native American stuff is out the window. Any of that sort of bounty hunter stuff we saw from Prey 2 from many E3s ago, that's gone. And now we've got this space station, this guy who seems to be having like a Groundhog Day thing, some kind of mental experiments. There's aliens of some kind going on. He's got a red eye. It all looks cool as all hell. It's using a new engine from the guys at Arcane. I believe that they're going to be using the engine in a few different Bethesda products now. Yeah, man, Prey, but who knows what that is? I mean, it wasn't gameplay once again. It was a CGI trailer. It's sometime in 2017 we're going to get this game, probably holiday. I mean, what did you guys think? It looked cool, huh?
It did look cool, but like you say, it's just CGI. We don't know what it means in terms of where it takes the Prey franchise, whether it's just a reset, whether it reuses anything from the existing Prey game. Don't know. I hope it does, because I kind of liked that hokey B-movie atmosphere that the first Prey game had. But it doesn't seem to look anything like that, does it? It looks quite serious. So I don't know. Apart from just using the same name, this could be anything.
I mean, that's the world's most pointless use of that IP. I mean, like, why use that name? Why? It's nothing to do with that franchise at all. So, it doesn't seem to be anyway. Maybe you'll have a spirit bird. Who knows?
My overriding feeling upon watching the Prey 2 trailer was, yeah, that looks a really good film. I'll watch that when it comes out. But like, what's the game? Like, I didn't get any sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a first-person shooter because of that little alien-y bit, but everything else is just like, yeah, this looks like a cool sci-fi film. I'll watch this. Like, but.
Yeah, so I mean, and there's not much to say at this point. Like, hopefully we'll get more information, you know, before next E3, but Christ, maybe not. You know, but until then, it might just be one of those games that just goes quiet, and then we'll find out more about it at some point in the future. So
or
after
never come out.
All that's well, it has a history, that franchise, doesn't it? Okay, after that, Bethesda kind of went out. Hey guys, you not really like Doom, don't you? I mean, Doom did really pretty well, and you all liked it. We thought you were gonna hate it, but you liked it. So here's like the guy who made Doom coming out, and he's like, "Yeah, thanks for liking my game. Here's some multiplayer. Yeah, nobody cares about the multiplayer, but here's some multiplayer DLC, and and we're gonna make the first level of it free for a week, so you can try it, and more people can buy it, because I'm still not seeing a lot of people play it on my friends list, to be fair. So I'm glad they've made that demo available, and that's happening, and that's really cool, and it is a fantastically good game. So everybody should play Doom. Then you do. Really, really good game. But once again, there's not a great deal to say about that. So yay, new multiplayer stuff to do. One nice thing is they're bringing in new content for the multiplayer and supporting multiplayer in a free capacity as well as the paid stuff that you can get, which would kind of slightly piss me off if I bought the season pass. But actually, for a change, I didn't. So you know, that's okay. Anybody want anything for Doom? Yeah,
No,
no,
not
just
played
me.
it.
Play it. Play the demo. You can play the demo now, Richard. Play the demo.
Okay. I
It's
don't think we
only
should spend too much time on it because it is out. And
yeah. I just say, well, it's a cool announcement that the demo is free, but it's only available for this week. So you need to get on it sooner rather than later.
All right, Dad, I'll do that.
If you do that, you can. Just extra homework. Right, and then Adam alluded to it before. Elder Scrolls ESO, Elder Scrolls Online, which I one of the few times I did the review for this when this game came out, and I was on console, I should add, and I was incredibly critical of it. I think I scored it like really low, like under 5. I can't remember what it was, and because the site died, we've lost all those reviews anyway, so I can't even go back to check. But it's one of the few times that I've actually had contact from a developer criticizing my score and my review, saying it was too low. But the reason I gave it such a low review is the game was fucking broken at launch. Like, in so many ways. Everything from invisible enemies that killed me, and I couldn't fight back, to quest givers morphing into creatures that couldn't give me the quests, so I couldn't turn in quests. You name it, that game was fucked. But I've heard things have improved quite a lot over the years since it came out, and it's got a fairly strong following. I love the bit that they kept on calling it Game of the Year, but never saying who said it was. No, not Game of the Year, Roleplay Game of the Year, RPG or MMO of the Year, and it's like they never said Kotaku or Polygon or IGN. It was just, we decided it was the best MMO. Yeah, we decided, which I thought was pretty amusing. But they've got new content, Dark Brotherhood questline sort of thing coming into the game, which was probably the best thing about, Morrowind. Morrowind had a great Dark Brotherhood. Oh, was it the last one? Oblivion. The Dark Brotherhood stuff in Oblivion was awesome. So, if it's as good as that, that'd be brilliant. But the big news for this, which I thought was pretty cool actually, was that they're going to do this thing called One Tamriel, which is they're removing the level restrictions in Elder Scrolls Online, which means no longer are you sort of stuck in a certain area due to your level or only able to party up with other people at a similar level. All of that's gone, and it's going to be like Skyrim in the way that enemies will scale to your level, and you'll be able to go anywhere in Tamriel at any time from the immediately you start that game. Which is the first time that they were saying this anyway, the first time that's ever happened in an MMO. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool. I think that's kind of interesting. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
I mean, the thing about auto-leveling enemies and scaling enemies and matching them to the player level, and it's like, I know it used to be a big kind of controversy in RPG sort of player circles, because a lot of people don't like it, because one of the appeals of an RPG is that you can go to an area, get your ass handed to you, not go back there for 20 levels, and then come back and take your brutal revenge on now horribly underpowered enemies compared to your godlike powers. And that's a big appeal of like the RPG genre. I can see it from the other's point of view as a designer, which is that, once you have, if you think back to the old RPGs where you really could go and get yourself way in over your head and end up in areas that were much too late game for you at your current level of ability, you could lose saves to that. You could end up with like a save game in the middle of an area that you couldn't get out of without getting slaughtered again and again and again. It was a problem, and so I can sort of see why you do it. It's a really difficult design decision, I think, when you have to make that, and they've decided to go that way with it, and maybe that's a good idea, but I don't know. It's hard. Honestly, I couldn't say one way or the other. If it's done right, it's fine, but it can be very bland. It can make for a very one-note kind of experience.
It's fair. That's the other side of that coin, and that's a valid take on it. Richard, any shits given in Richard's camp?
No, I mean, just go back to what Adam said earlier about Elder Scrolls in general. He's just said that sort of design sounds bland, but for me, the overall world design is pretty bland in itself, so it's not one that draws me in. I did play Oblivion to death, but I felt like that was enough for me, and I never bothered with Skyrim. I can't see me buying another one.
Fair enough. Talking about that, though, talking about their big RPGs, the next piece of news, which was interesting, was that Bethesda are bringing both Fallout 4 and Doom to VR, and they're bringing Fallout to the Vive next year, which is kind of like, that's pretty big. When this news got announced, and I was on Twitter watching it, I saw a lot of the VR evangelists and the the developers, that's sort of guys we follow on the BXB account, really being pissed off about this, saying that, you know, retrofitting VR to established games that weren't designed with that in mind to start with is a big mistake, and because the games, when played in VR, will not be very good. They won't work as well. It will not give a good VR experience to people. And getting, you know, in their typical high and mighty attitude about it, you know, getting a bit defensive and stuff. And my response to one of them was that, well, think about how retrofitting 3D to films got 3D in front of more people, got more people to buy 3D TVs, got more people to adopt 3D. Isn't that what you want from VR? Isn't it like you want people to pick up VR because they've heard of Doom or Fallout and gone, oh, I wouldn't mind trying that in VR, buy the VR headset, get that home. Yeah, maybe that experience won't be the best, but then they've got the hardware and they can play the good VR experiences.
I don't know. I'm not sure the analogy works, because the some of the best examples for 3D for me are ones where it has been retrofitted, like Top Gun in 3D is amazing. You wouldn't think it would be, but it's one of the best 3D films you can get. I don't think the same logic would apply to putting all the functionality and intricate design of an interactive world in a different sort of medium, if you like, completely different. It's not the same thing to interact in a virtual reality experience as it is to just watch a TV.
Because what's interesting about the retrofitting of films is that actually, in some ways, that's exactly what you want from a 3D film, because what you get is a film that wasn't made for 3D, but just happens to be in 3D, and so isn't full of characters inexplicably pointing directly at the camera.
Yeah.
Things flying at you. It just becomes a kind of cool added layer to the experience. Whereas with VR, I think you probably do want the sort of equivalent of the finger at the camera. You do want a game that's been built to take advantages of VR and designed to, and also to take advantage to avoid the limitations of VR. Like, I don't know. I mean, people tell me that if you play on a VR set for more than about an hour, even the sort of strongest stomached people do start to feel quite nauseous. And so Fallout 4, Fallout 4 is not a short session game. It seems an odd fit, but
I got shouted down a lot for that analogy as well on Twitter, and I think one of the main problems was that 3D failed, and I don't think the VR I don't think the VR guys like to be told that it might fail, because the people that love VR love VR, and from my experiences on it, it's all right. But and I think you guys are completely correct, of course, as well. I was being a bit facetious, and I was being argumentative for the sake of it to get a rise out of people a little bit online. But of course, the big element for me would be, the control aspect. That in a VR game, if it was Fallout, it's designed for WASD controls and a mouse or a controller. It's not designed for motion controllers, so they're going to have to make all that retrofit all of that into the game. Otherwise, it's going to be a half-assed experience. So it's an interesting announcement, and I'd be very interested to see how how it's going with hands-on and stuff. And there is hands-on happening at E3 right now, so perhaps there'll be some write-ups about that shortly, and we'll get an idea of what's going on. And after that, Bethesda closed out the show with Dishonored 2. And I'm happy to go to anybody else about this, because I didn't love Dishonored, and Dishonored 2 looks a lot like a current-gen version of Dishonored, and it doesn't really interest me in the slightest. So, either of you guys excited about Dishonored?
I wish I was. I really wanted to like Dishonored.
So did I.
Because the visual style is so unique. I don't know. Remember in the 80s and 90s where you could look at a game and think, well, that's French.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
It has that sort of vibe to me. It looks, that's a continental-looking game.
Well, the art style of Dishonored is fat hands. I mean,
but Dishonored had a really interesting world built around it as well. There was this idea of like the whales and all that kind of stuff. It was really nice, but I agree with Richard very much. Like, I really, really wanted to like it. I think the thing for me was it was doing that kind of Deus Ex stealthy kind of, mixed up. You can go violent, you can go stealthy kind of options. But then it gave you the ability to just invisibly teleport at pretty much will throughout the entire game. And that sort of, I found it just robbed my every achievement of any feeling of like I'd earned it. Like, it felt like the player power suite that you were working with was so insanely good And then you get the rat power, and you can just basically point at people and wish them dead, and they just die. And it just seemed too much. So I think that's possibly why I lost interest in it. Dishonored 2 looked really nice, but yeah, like you said, it just looked like a nice Dishonored 2. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'd play it, I guess, but like you said, the world they built was unique, though not necessarily appealing. It wasn't a world I necessarily wanted to be in. It was oppressive and very.
Oh no, I loved all that. I loved the sort of dark, noirish kind of misery of the town.
Yeah,
that reminded me of Thief a bit, actually. A little bit Thief.
Yeah. It had that real kind of steampunk, London plague overtones to it all. I really liked all of that. I wished it had a slightly more. I don't know, because even the game was engaging, but somehow you just didn't feel compelled. Like you'd come home from work and you'd think, "Oh no, I'll play something else," and then after a week you'd be like, "Oh, I can't remember what I was doing in it," and you've just lost the thread.
There are clearly, though, a great deal of fans for this series. The reaction to this announcement are just, hugely hyped for it. A lot of people. I was watching it on Twitter. Loads of people just freaking out about it, and I'm like, Dishonored, there it is. Which it was a solid way of finishing the show for Bethesda. It's probably their most anticipated game of this year, and it's not that far off, is it? No, it's November. So that's coming up. That's coming up. Anyway. So, that was the end of day 0 of E3, if you like. The Sunday, that was the first 2 conferences. And then yesterday we had the second lot, which was 3 conferences, starting off with our big one for us, because we used to be an Xbox website, no secret. So we're always excited to see what Microsoft does. And, they didn't fuck around, did they?
They didn't fuck around.
They came straight out of the gate. It had been leaked the day before, but I was hesitant to report it because of the source. It was a gaff thread, and it was quite possibly could have been faked. So I didn't report it on BXB until it was confirmed. But yeah, we're going to have a hardware revision, and it's going to be with us in August, and it's called the Xbox One S, and it's 3 flavors of hard drive. And basically, it's the best flavor. The limited edition flavor will be a 2 terabyte hard drive in this box. It's redesigned. It's 40% smaller. It's white. It's going to have a stand so you can put it up vertical. They've taken out the dedicated Connect port, but you can get a USB adapter for it. Other than that, all the ports are the same, though they've been moved around a little bit. It's got an IR blaster on the front, so it can directly manipulate things like your TV and your sound system if you wish, but it doesn't have a microphone, which is weird for me. If you're going to put an IR blaster in there and give it half the Kinect functionality, you might as well have done that, but hey. And it comes with a redesigned controller, which has got Bluetooth in it, which is actually the only change, as far as I can tell, so it can talk directly to a Windows 10 machine without needing an adapter. So, yeah, I mean, and did I miss anything, guys? I think I pretty much nailed it. It looks sexy.
Power block as well.
It looks great. Oh, that's right, yes, no more external power block, yes, which is quite a big deal, actually, yeah, and it looks really nice. There's some videos floating around of Major Nelson putting a shell of an original Xbox down over it, which gives you a really good idea of the difference in size and space it takes up. It really is a lot smaller.
It's pretty dinky.
Yeah, and it's August, which is just around the corner, a couple of months from now, and I want one.
I do. Beyond
really
all
one.
sense and reason,
Yeah.
I want one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm there. Adam, now, as someone you don't own an Xbox One,
well, yes,
making you want to buy an Xbox One.
It did for precisely 40 minutes, and then ruined that utterly.
There may have been an announcement at the end of the Microsoft show that could have changed your opinion about picking up this hardware,
yes.
which we will get to. Yeah, I mean, I think this redesigned unit, though, it's replacing. See, some people are thinking, when this was announced, oh, it's going to be this SKU and that SKU and then this thing that's happening maybe next year. I mean, what does that mean? No, it's replacing the existing hardware entirely, which is going to be discontinued and taken off the market. And so this new Xbox One S is going to be the default entry level. So like I was talking about the hard drive sizes, you're going to have, I'm going to talk in pounds because we're British. So basically it's $350 for the 2 terabyte drive, $300 for the 1 terabyte drive, and $250 for the 500 gigabyte drive. The 2 terabyte drive is only going to be available for a short amount of time at the sort of start of the launch and stuff. Did I get all that right? I think I did. I'm doing it from memory, and remember, my memory's fucked right now. So
the thing I most enjoyed about this, the Xbox One S model, was that the Kinect needs an adapter now, which really does mean Microsoft have abandoned that. That is now dead.
They've kept the HDMI in, but removed the Kinect connector. port,
Yeah.
which is an odd choice to me. I feel like that's wrong way round, really. But hey, okay.
I'm sure that's just down to the space in the box, though, right? Because the Kinect socket is huge.
Well,
like in
it is, but yeah, I don't think so.
You know, in movies where someone unplugs a massive, like in Ghostbusters or something, you know, when they unplug the Ghostbusters machine and it's all big wires and it's like that pulling Kinect out.
It is, that's true.
It is a hefty thing. But they've said they're going to sell an adapter for it, you know, that like for a few extra pounds. So if you... Who the fuck's going to buy that? Nobody.
Exactly.
So let me tell you why I'm going to buy an Xbox. I'm in a household, I have 2 Xbox Ones. I've got an old launch one and a new one. I will trade in my old launch one and I'll get an S, which will place where my new one is, and the newer version of the original one will go to where the launch one was. And when the certain thing that happens next year happens, I will then get rid of the previous old one. So it's like, you know, it's a life cycle for me, Richard. I have reasons.
I've got my own reasons.
We're not just insane, are we, Richard? Are we just insane?
No. There is a reason. There is logic behind it. I mean, I've got only one Xbox One at the moment, but that's through necessity. I don't have space for it in the bedroom because it doesn't stand on its side. Thankfully, the new one does. So I can put Xbox One S behind my TV upstairs in the bedroom. Keep my original Xbox where it is for the minute until the new one comes out.
Perfect. There we go. Let's move on though, because I mean that was a great way to start the show, wasn't it? I mean, wow, hardware announcement.
Yeah.
Pretty
It was
awesome.
good. It was a strong start.
Yeah. So then we got into Gears of War, and you know, Gears of War 4. It looks like Gears of War. It plays like Gears of War. It's a pretty version of the Gears of War, you know. You're either really into that or you're not. I'm kind of like, yeah, I enjoy Gears of War. I'll play Gears of War 4. It's coming out in October. You know, Horde. They confirmed Horde mode. They showed off some co-op gameplay. And then they went, oh, it's Marcus Phoenix! He's in it. Well, of course Marcus Phoenix is fucking in it. You're not going to get a Gears of War game without Marcus Phoenix in some form, are you? And then they showed off. I thought this was weird. Then they ran a video package of a Gears of War custom Elite controller.
Yeah.
And it just
looked awesome.
It just looked ugly.
No, I loved it. I thought it was really good.
Fucking hell, man. Seriously? I mean, I didn't mind the damage and the scratching. What I really disliked, though, were the etched-in gun icons on the D-pad.
No, that was my favourite bit.
Oh, what is wrong with you? Next you'll be telling me you're going to get a Call of Duty fucking Xbox One with the fucking ugly paint job that had. Jesus Christ. Oh, mate. No. The idea of, like...
I'm not going to buy one. I just thought
you just thought it looked cool.
I thought that the one thing I thought about the controller is that it seemed to continue the theme of Microsoft announcing cool hardware and then making it kind of worthless about 20 minutes later.
Yes, because they announced a cooler controller shortly after. Yes, they did indeed. Then we had a quick moment. I'm just gonna shout if you guys want to talk in more depth about some of these things, but I'm gonna move at a bit of speed because I'm aware of the time. Killer Instinct, we had a moment with that. It's a super popular fighting game, they said, on the Xbox One. The most popular. I can't think of another proper fighting game on Xbox One, but okay. It's better than the rest of them, I guess. And
just really quickly, to find out if I was completely off base with this one, did everyone else think Killer Instinct looked absolute garbage?
Killer Instinct is an amazing game.
I thought it was by far the worst video, but of that trailer, I thought it was the worst trailer of the entire show.
It wasn't a good trailer.
It wasn't a terrible trailer, but I don't know. I think you can kind of forgive Killer Instinct a lot in terms of its visuals because it was a release game. I know they've upgraded it a bit since then, but it plays so well. It really is a very.
I'm not playing it.
Also, the addition of Ram, probably the least liked character from Gears of War, into Killer Instinct did nothing for me. Like I was just like, Ram, whatever, who cares? But then we did have a big announcement after this. And it looked gorgeous, and it was already leaked. Pretty much most of this was leaked, actually, before the show. But we had Forza Horizon 3 set in Australia, looking sexy as fuck. Like, seriously.
It looks amazing, right? I mean, that's a game you buy a new TV for.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting as well. In the setup they had a guy running on a regular Xbox One. They had a guy running, somebody running on the Xbox One S. They had a guy running on the PC, and I think they had somebody running on like a high-end, PC driving rig setup as well. And then they were all cross-platform, able to play with each other. with like a drop-in multiplayer, like seamlessly. Really, I think that's really cool. And I'll sort of jump to this now. The Play Anywhere aspect of Microsoft's conference was a huge element. Basically, every game they showed is going to be available on Xbox and Windows 10. And basically, they also said that if you like buy it on one or buy it on Xbox, I'm not sure if it counts if you buy it on PC, but if you buy it on Xbox, you get the PC version as well. Much like Sony's initiative with the way they do things with Vita versions of PS4 games and stuff like that. But I think it's even more important on PC because Microsoft are really going for that PC market again, hard, with the current setup of Xbox. And they also announced, actually, that the Xbox exclusive games that have already come out will be coming to PC and will also be part of this initiative. So you're going to basically get any of these games will be like on PC as well for you, which makes me want to buy a better computer, a better PC, because I think that's a really cool feature. So, what did you guys think about all that? Because it was a big part of the show. It kept coming up, didn't it?
No, I started about that because I bought Oxenfree and my Surface Pro, and it don't fucking work. So if I get it free on Xbox One, then great, I can play that finally.
Why did you buy it on the fucking Surface?
Because there was a review that said this game runs really well on Surface Pro 3. No, don't. Sorry, mate.
Just don't.
Yeah. So I contacted whoever made it. I contacted them and said this game don't work. That review went right. So I know that's not your fault, but can you give me the Xbox One? And they didn't reply. So.
You're not missing out much. It was all right. But yeah, so that was like Forza Horizon showing off, like showing all that multiplayer, drop in, drop out. Those games. Forza Horizon 2 is one of my all-time favorite racing games. It's pretty much perfect. So I think 3 great setting, great choice of location. The cars look lovely. Yeah, Microsoft, they know how to show racing games.
Oh,
and they do it so well.
This got me proper pumped because with Forza games, particularly in the normal stable of Forza series, you know what you're going to get every year or every couple of years. It's going to look slightly better. But for Forza Horizon 3, just felt to me like this is a completely new game. Having put a lot of time into Forza Horizon 2, this felt like something that I would get a lot from, even having spent lots of time with the franchise before. Completely new environments, lots of new different types of driving experiences, and all that cross-platform stuff. It just means it's going to be a really rich multiplayer experience all over again.
Yep. Especially when they're showing, like dune buggies racing around on beaches and stuff. So
doing flips over dunes. That was amazing.
This is a really unique thing.
Plus, they showed quickly one of those, crazy. I forget what they call those races in Horizon when you're racing something that's not a car, but they showed you racing a fighter plane. I was like, "Yep, I'm in. I'm so in." But yeah, that's out end of September, so not that long at all. After that, we got a pretty long demo of Recore, which looks like it's going to be a pretty fun, character-driven, 3D platform adventure game in the mold we do not see that much anymore. And it's coming middle of September, and it's going to be kind of budget-priced. It's only going to be about £30, is what I've heard. So I don't know if that's a bad sign for that game or a good sign. Maybe it means they want to get it into more people's hands because it's a new IP, and they want to make it more appealing. Maybe there's fuck all to it, but what did you guys think of that? I thought it looked really cool.
I wasn't convinced. There were a few late 90s style horrible 3D jumping sections, and I don't know, it just looked a little bit clunky in places. So I don't know. What do you think, Adam?
Well, the main thing I thought was, and I don't know much, like if there's been previews and stuff where they've talked about the world that it's set in or what's going on in that video, because it's kind of, again, it's one of those games where you look at it and you go, I'm not really sure what this is. Like, I get that you're in a third-person action environment and you've got this kind of robot dog. It looks like you're in a kind of robotic ecosystem, and if that's the case, I'm afraid Sony absolutely trounced them very, very hard. And I felt I couldn't really, like, after the fact, when I was making my notes, I just couldn't get away from. I'm going to rave quite positively about the game that Sony showed.
That's a really fair comparison. Yeah.
And after that, you look at Recore and you go, "Oh, it's like the budget version of that." Oh dear.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it felt like there were a few different components knocking around in Recore. None of them seemed to stand out in of themselves. and I couldn't see how they quite gelled into a cohesive experience. So we'll see. We'll see what comes out of that, but I'm not convinced at the moment.
After that, we got what I can only describe as a Final Fantasy 15 boss fight in which three people hit a large hand repeatedly, and I basically nodded off during that.
This was the absolute nadir of Xbox of the Xbox show. What a dog shit show!
This was trash.
Just
so bad.
It's so bad. It's so bad I can't even find any video of that online. I mean, it's like nobody even bothered to capture it. It was just like. I don't
understand what they thought they were showing. I mean,
no, I don't get it.
Final Fantasy is known for style over substance, so it should at least have looked good, but there was no real flow to the combat. It was just an arm glitching through floor for 4 minutes.
It was
about the size of it, yeah.
I'm not a Final Fantasy fan on a good day, and that was not a good day. So yeah, we'll just moving on. We got some Division DLC stuff now. Basically reiterating that they've got the deal with Microsoft in place, which means the DLC comes a month early, which is actually the first part of the DLC plan is coming out, end of the month. And then they also showed off. Actually, am I getting this right or wrong? They showed the new. Yeah, they did show the new Survival DLC at this conference, didn't they? Anyone?
Don't remember. I don't know. I kind of zoned out on Division because I don't play it.
Yeah, I can't remember. But basically, either at this or at the Ubisoft show, they showed off the sort of the second piece of DLC with no date or anything. But it looks all right. But I mean, the one thing that was worth taking away from this new DLC is that they're going to have randomly generated missions. Which I think is a pretty smart move, which means there'll be added replayability and variety, which is something the Division could definitely do with. So yeah, we'll see how that works though. But in other stories that are worth just flying through here, Battlefield 1 had a showing. It was pretty much exactly the same as EA's demo. The only thing they pointed out was if you're an EA Access person, you get the game, which equates to like 8 days early on EA Access, or at least you get to play it for a while early, which is nice. And then they had a little bit where the Xbox Live guy came out and went, "Hey, new stuff is coming, background music," and I just sort of went, okay, cool. And then he said, "We're going to do these things that sound like we're trying to bring kind of clan type gaming to the Xbox, and bake it in with this thing with like clubs and the ability to find groups." And I was just thinking to myself, like what Sony has with their. They have groups, don't they, in the friends list on the PlayStation? I was just sort of like, yeah.
I'm surprised you're not down on that because I thought it sounded really good.
What? I mean, what? Oh, okay. It was a little bit vague. What did you take away from it? Like, what made you interested in clubs and groups?
Okay, well, the clubs is like you say, it's exactly what PlayStation 4's got in terms of the communities you can set up for any particular game, or you can set up.
We've got a BXB one.
We've got a BXB one on PlayStation. I can't say I've used it because I don't use my PlayStation. But the idea of having one of those on Xbox appeals. I wouldn't mind that. That would be quite cool. The most interesting thing for me was the find groups feature, which sounds like the beacons of old on Xbox 360, but that was only to say to your friends, I want to play this game, I want to play that game, and you could list 3 games that you wanted to play. This feels like it's much more open to the Xbox Live community at large. So if I want to dip into a game that all my friends have moved on from long since, then I can do that. I can find strangers that want to do the same thing as me, make some new friends, and that is really appealing to someone who doesn't have time to engage on Xbox Live like regularly at specific points in the week. It's hard for me to build up a regular schedule of playing with certain people. So if I can dip in and find someone to do something that I want to do a specific game with, then that's a great feature for people like me.
All right, and then the final kind of part of this announcement was Arena, which sounds like they're trying to bake in a bit of esportsiness into the Xbox with this, so like a tournament feature that will be sort of supported, more or less by developers depending on what they want to do with their game. But yeah, it just sounds to me like they're trying to get more of an organized competitive scene going on the Xbox with that one. And as someone who that doesn't appeal to in the slightest, I kind of glazed over a little bit. But hey, I know there's a lot of people that are going to be interested in that, so that's kind of cool. And all of that stuff is coming in the summer. So that probably means people in the preview program, such as me and you, Richard, will probably have an ability to try that out, before long, I would think. So not long. Minecraft then had some time on the stage because, well, Microsoft owns Minecraft and it's a big initiative for them. And, to be fair, what they announced it was pretty cool. Minecraft Realms is going to basically mean Minecraft will be cross-play across all the devices Minecraft is on, which is pretty smart.
I heard something today about that not being the entire truth. I think the Pocket versions are cross-platform and the full versions are cross-platform, but they're not interchangeable, are they? So I can't play Windows Phone to Xbox One or...
It's probably because they've got like reduced functionality on the Pocket versions, I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, it's presumably much smaller worlds, logically.
Yeah. Environment size, I'd imagine.
Yeah. But it's a good step though. It's cool that they're breaking those boundaries down.
Yeah, I don't want to knock it, but yeah, the message seemed to be that you can play anyone, anywhere, and I don't think that's entirely the case. But even if it is more limited than that, it's a great step forward. Just can't believe that Minecraft has still got massive stage presence at E3 year after year. How many years has it been going, and it's still so big?
A game that still regularly shows up in the top 10 NPD sellers pretty much every month. So it constantly sells, constantly. So they have to. It's crazy how popular that thing is. It's frightening how popular that thing is, actually.
It's children.
Yeah. Damn children. Right, now we got something that was quite fun. Custom Xbox One controllers. It doesn't seem to be available in the UK yet, but basically there's a design lab feature now on Xbox.com, which means you can customize an Xbox One controller, and it works out about $80, I think, without an engraving, or $90 with it, and you can basically make any, well, not any color, but they touted 8 million combinations can be done. Customize the colors of the buttons, the D-pad, the triggers, you name it, the face. Pretty much all of it can be changed in some form to some degree or some degree or other. And I had a little play around with it, and yes, it's pretty fucking cool. And I kind of just want one of these controllers to never use and just have one, really, because I'm insane.
What I was going to say, you would never use it, would you? Because this is only for standard controllers, and I know you've got an Elite now.
I have, yeah. So I would never use it, no. But
I
kind of want one anyway.
I would never want to go back to a standard controller now. So yeah, it's a shame they can't do that for Elite ones as well. And just have something.
I wouldn't buy another Elite. That would be bonkers town, considering how expensive that was. But But no, it's a fun thing to have. It's a fun thing to have. Kind of appealing to a certain demographic, which will enjoy having custom controls, especially like the hardcore players, professional players. They'll be able to carry around an engraved controller, maybe with their special esports colors on it, or with their team colors and things like that. I can dig that. It's a fun idea.
I can't account for why I love this feature so much, but I absolutely adored this idea. I was like, I want to do that now, and I don't even I barely use Xbox. I just want one. They're awesome. They just look great.
They do, and I messed around with the software that they had on the website to do the designing, and it's really swish and works really, really well. And it's tempting. I think I probably will end up trying to get one in some form or other. Okay, we then moved on to the indie portion. The Idea Xbox portion of the presentation. We've got Inside was shown from Playdead, the Limbo guys, and importantly, Limbo is free right now, and if you don't have that, get it. For Christ's sake, get it. It's so damn good. And Inside looked pretty good as well, and it's just around the corner. I believe it's coming out this month. Yeah, so that could be good. Anybody else excited for it? No.
Yeah, kind of, but the trailer could be more exciting. I mean, I'm looking forward to it despite the trailer, which featured two men at a photocopier for a minute and a half.
I think it's probably got a lot to do with them not wanting to spoil the game, I suspect. Because it's probably that kind of experience, isn't it, where you could quite easily give stuff away if you show too much. I could be wrong. Maybe they just couldn't be bothered. They just captured a little bit of B-roll and went, yeah, have it, whatever. I mean, that's quite possible too. And then we got the typical Idea Xbox montage video, which I've only watched once, so I haven't actually gone through and picked out any standouts. I remember when I was watching it going, oh, that looked cool. Ooh, what was that? Oh, have a go at that. I mean, I noticed a few space flying-y games, which I always enjoy. So, anything stand out for you guys in there?
Stardew Valley was in there, which, I mean, is already playable on PC, but is a great, great game. So anyone who hasn't got a PC and has an Xbox, you should get that when it comes out because it's really brilliant. You know, a lot of the Idea Xbox montages, this is like the second or third year, it's kind of set my teeth on edge slightly as an indie developer because they do like to show games that have clearly had millions of dollars spent on them and go, look how we're supporting independent developers. Yeah. That wasn't made in anyone's bedroom, I promise you. Like that was, you're looking at a team of 30 people for some of those games.
So we're talking triple indie.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so I don't know. It just makes me sort of go, But that's the way it's going, I guess.
What was I thought really cool after that? We got We Happy Few with a pretty damn long stage demo, and this game looks like I'm talking about game. This was gameplay. But I'm not 100% sure what this game is actually going to be. Because it seems to be at the moment, it's kind of like this creepy 60s set British Bioshocky kind of thing, but without any combat, potentially.
Bioshock, that's the exact vibe I got. Bioshock.
Yeah. Oh, but even creepier. Like, really set your teeth on edge wrongness about how weird this thing looked. It really, really cool. And it's coming out this month, but it's a single-player game. But it's coming out in game preview, which is pretty weird. Like early access on Xbox at the end of this month. So what's that about? I mean, how do you bring out a narrative-driven story experience in game preview?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Unless they are releasing it bit by bit, like an episodic.
It could be.
You know, you could follow the Hitman sort of format, couldn't you? Just release independent episodes. It wouldn't necessarily be in a preview. So yeah, it's odd. I mean, if they literally are releasing the whole game and then refining it towards a full release, would you really want to go back to the finished game having already done it on preview?
It can't be, can it? It's going to have to be, like you said. It's going to have to be. It's not finished. It has to be a case of it just stops or something, which will be incredibly frustrating if it's what it is.
Isn't the game itself quite sandboxy, though? I didn't think it was necessarily a direct linear through path.
I've seen trailers before, and it did look a bit sandboxy, yeah. But this trailer, this gameplay, it looked incredibly linear.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't know right now. I got a little bit of a vibe of Sir, you're being hunted from previous trailers. Like the idea that you're not necessarily... like a capable fighter, so you're avoiding more than you're actually getting into conflict. But I don't know. I mean, it's
I think
got a great aesthetic. So
the trailer tried very hard to make it look like you don't do anything in this game. Like for the first couple of minutes, I was really bored. That then that thing happens and you realise that was the point. You did spend a minute looking at that. Redacting newspaper machine purely to set your expectations low, and then the worst possible thing happens, and you're beating small animals to death instantly.
I think the best thing to come out of that is the meme of Richard, have you had your joy? Which I think is going to be a thing I ask people all the time now. But no, I can't wait to play that. It looked genuinely unsettling. So,
well, also, I think on the last podcast we were talking about how much we miss kind of authentically British feeling games, and this is classic British dystopian sci-fi. This is absolutely bang on.
Absolutely, got a great vibe of Clockwork Orange coming off of that as well. Real good bit of Kubrickian. Fuck you up shit. Anyway, right, moving on. Happy news. Gwent's a real thing. It's coming out. It's standalone. I literally signed up for the beta the moment he said there was one. So I went straight to that website and did that. I am so excited to be playing Gwent standalone. I don't know why. I don't even like card games that much, but something about Gwent is just the greatest thing. I cannot wait.
If you ever see a copy of a board game called Condottieri in a shop, you should probably buy it.
Okay, Condottieri. What? Say again?
Condottieri, it's called.
Is it French?
That's Italian for like. I think it's like some sort of.
It definitely sounded European.
Rank of nobility.
All right. Okay.
The reason you should buy it is because Gwent is stolen from it.
Cool.
Almost lock, stock, and barrel.
I love it. I love it. I can't wait. I can't wait for a standalone game. I was so into that trailer. I even went, oh, they've taken out the Nilfgaardian deck. Oh, they're putting Skellig Isles deck instead. Interesting. But I understand why, because Nilfgaardian deck isn't that, hasn't got that much variety, say, compared to the Northern Realms deck. I believe it wouldn't stand out as well as, a Skellig deck. I was like, oh, okay. So that's how deep I am into that, which is terrifying. And then we moved on to something which I was like, oh, I don't care. Tekken 7? Anyone? Yeah, no. Isn't Akuma a Street Fighter character?
No, he's always been in Tekken. Oh, it's Akuma.
Akuma, yeah, Street Fighter.
Akuma Long, yeah.
Yeah, because he's now in Tekken then.
Wow, that's interesting.
No, they've got a long-standing crossover, haven't they?
Well, this isn't a Tekken X Street Fighter, which was a game, or was it Street Fighter X Tekken? I can't remember. This is just Tekken 7. But Akuma seems to be in it, based on that trailer, like a major character in it. He beat the guy with the hair up, big time. So in that trailer, that's all I know. All I know is that the guy with the hair, and then the guy with the balls around his neck, and he beat up the guy with the hair because of his balls power.
Yeah,
that's all I know. I didn't.
Okay, I mean Tekken was great in its day, but like. I almost feel like when you're putting the number 7 on the end of your game name, you better be Final Fantasy, because. Like,
or a game that got announced in the Sony conference.
Oh yes, maybe.
Well, I think you can get away with it on that one as well. But all right, let's just move past that. Again, no gameplay. Well, actually, was there gameplay in that? Did I see health bars? No, I think I might have seen some health bars when they were fighting. Actually, now you mentioned it, might have had some gameplay in there. But now, interestingly, the second game that was shown at Microsoft that kind of got gazumped by Sony was Dead Rising 4. You know what I'm talking about, and we'll get there in a bit. But yeah, I was really excited about this. It was leaked ahead of time. I love Dead Rising series. I love 1, I love 2, I love 3 on the Xbox One launch. It was a really cool launch title. And we're back to Willamette now with Frank West, back to the original character and original setting, but with some nice little refinements and tweaks. But that same insanely silly attitude and over-the-top nature of Dead Rising.
That's what sort of interested me about this, is because you say it's Frank West back and it's the same set and setting, but the original Dead Rising, and this is a bit hypocritical of me because I actually criticised the original Dead Rising quite heavily for this, it was a really schizophrenic game. It was put on a dress, hit zombies with golf clubs, ha, this is hilarious, and now listen to this woman describe for 45 seconds how her child screamed while the zombies devoured it in front of her. And like Frank West would occasionally sort of, just stare off into the distance at all the horror he'd seen, and like it was trying to be a kind of horrific, terrifying survival horror game, and it was trying to let you put Mega Man costumes on.
I think the strongest memory I have from the original Dead Rising is the save system.
Yes,
so that's
a very old save system.
Save system.
Used a lot of people. And so it's probably good that they've moved completely to ridiculous to the point where, he's now taking selfies with zombies and, rigging
putting on a suit of
death traps for them.
Power armor and stuff.
That was in the original as well, though, wasn't it? You could still take photos with zombies.
Oh no, the photo element was really important in the original.
There was the risque rewards for photos,
upskirt shots and stuff, and all of that. Yeah, very
but
Japanese.
He wasn't taking comic selfies with zombies trying to eat his face and posting them to Twitter, which he does do in this trailer.
But he also puts on a.
It was photojournalism was the idea.
He puts on a suit of power armor and beats them up with cars.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's like you can't. It's just amazing.
They've gone full silly with it, and maybe that's where it needs to be. But it's just sort of interesting how the series has evolved over the time.
No, absolutely. And Dead Rising 3 was full-on ridiculous. Like, it really embraced it. And this looks like to do exactly the same thing. And it would have been the best zombie game at the show until something else was shown. later on that day.
I think it's got its own spot though, because the game you're talking about doesn't have that tone at all. It seems to have rolled back on any silliness that the franchise had, and it's deep in serious PT sort of territory.
Yeah.
So I think Dead Rising's got its own niche. They don't necessarily cross.
I mean, Dead Rising's almost got more in common with a Dynasty Warriors title than a survival horror game, shall we say?
Yeah.
So on to the next thing, Richard. I'm going to go straight to you on this because this is the one you were pretty hyped for. How did you feel about Scalebound at this show?
I got more into it the longer the trailer went on. I thought the way it was billed as Platinum's biggest ever boss fight, I didn't think they meant just in scale. I thought it'd be a bit more exciting. It seemed like a typical war of attrition from when we talked about it last podcast. We compared it to Phantasy Star, didn't we? And there were elements in Phantasy Star where you'd just be hitting point boxes until the dragon fell over, and it did feel a bit like that until we got a bit further in and saw some more dynamic action, and the boss changed form, and there was a bit more to it. I think I will enjoy it for the multiplayer aspect, and I still love the silliness of halfway through a fight he just puts his headphones on and starts listening to.
That was brilliant. He was like, now let's power up.
Yeah, it's so stupid, but it's funny. So yeah, it looks like it's got a good fun attitude. It has some of the aesthetics of Phantasy Star, and all of the multiplayer stuff that I enjoyed from that. I think it'll be good fun.
I just thought it's funny. He's flying around on a fucking dragon, and he decides to get off so he can shoot some bows and arrows. And I was just like, you're on a fucking dragon, and now you're firing arrows at this thing. What are you doing? But obviously there'd be a reason for gameplay mechanics, I'm sure. Blah. But yeah, I thought it looked all right. It looked okay. It could be fun, like you said, in a group. I think that's where that game will live and die.
I think the original demo was more interesting than that, because it wasn't just riding on a dragon. It was a dragon kicking the shit out of stuff alongside you, and it had more of a cooperative vibe, like with an AI partner, and adding multiplayer into that as well could make this a really exciting prospect. So I hope they haven't dialed back on that and they're just using dragons as vehicles now. We'll see.
That would be disappointing if they did that. Absolutely. Right. So we then moved on from flying around on lizards to sailing the high seas in pirate ships, where we got some Sea of Thieves, like proper gameplay, which I thought was pretty cool. It's a shame it was ruined a little bit with YouTubers, but you know, I guess that's what we are now. So I probably shouldn't be too critical. But they could have been more annoying, I think. So they kind of were quite, you know, even-handed with their, oh my god, it's sinking, what do we do? The boat's sinking, which I thought was.
I mean, it is theoretically possible they could have been more annoying, but difficult.
Well, they could have all
I
been really
didn't
annoying
like
accents.
I didn't mind them, but that's by virtue of me believing the subtitles that they weren't sort of canned responses, and that was all real, but gamers playing a real session of Sea of Thieves.
It felt real.
If it was real, I didn't find it particularly annoying. I appreciated.
My favourite bit was when they all went to the pub and got drunk.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool that you could do that, and they were all like, you know, the screen all distorted and they were falling over and stuff. I thought that was quite funny. And then watching the combat, and then like, you know, the ship sinking and all of that, it was like, yeah, this game is going to be a riot.
Yeah.
Like, getting there with your friends is going to be, it's like totally silly. It's not serious in the slightest. It's full of whimsy and just lark and a good time, and it just, yeah, I'm in.
But work as well. I mean, the overriding thing for me was that you have to work with your friends to succeed at this game. If that's patching up under, you know, the holes in the side of the ship by going below deck, even something as simple as steering. There's a bit where the guy says, right, the sail's in my eyes, you're going to have to tell me where to go. That sounds terrible in a sense, but my immediate reaction was, wow, that is so cool that I'm going to have to get someone to help me out and sort of be my wingman and direct me while I'm sailing the high seas. It looks really good fun.
In
And
that aspect, it reminded me of Lost Planet 2. I don't know if you've ever played that.
yes,
You know the co-op campaign in Lost Planet 2? That has some of the finest multiplayer moments I've ever experienced, and they're all basically about the train level where you're working a gun, and someone has to just keep ferrying shells for you to load into the gun to fire at this sandworm that's chasing the train. And it's kind of a boring job, but everyone's relying on you to do it, and it's like important. And at the end of the fight, like we're all kind of, in the post-level screen, every one of us has had a completely unique experience of that battle, because whilst I've been like on top fighting off dudes and keeping them off the back of the train, someone else has been inside the train dealing with like overheating dials and trying to keep the engine running. And I had no idea that even existed. Like I didn't even see that environment once. And so what really excited me about Sea of Thieves was exactly that. It was weirdly the least exciting moments of the trailer, but the idea of someone saying, "Oh, someone's got to climb up and get that sail down. Like someone's got to release that sail and actually, unfurl it." And I'm going to go and bail water from the basement for 10 minutes because otherwise we're going to sink. Like things like that make for some just really interesting multiplayer experiences.
The less fun aspect will be when you've been playing for a while with a crew, or you get recruited or something, and it's like, no, you stay below decks. No, you come up. Your job is to make sure if we take a shell below the sea line, you patch up the hole. You don't come up. Get your ass back down in the hole.
No, I think that's kind of good. I think that's exactly what I like about it. That actually excites me.
As long as I'm the captain, Adam, I'm fine. That's fine. That's what I'm saying. Captain or not, captain or I'm out.
I think we want to find our own boat, Adam.
Yeah, we'll get our own boat.
So after Sea of Thieves, we got a bit of a surprise announcement here, and it was cool to see. And to be honest, I was talking about at another conference beating Dead Rising for Best Zombies. I think State of Decay 2 actually was better than Dead Rising for Best Zombies. I love State of Decay, and the fact that they announced State of Decay 2, I'm super, super excited for that. So that's a really cool, if janky as fuck game.
Yes.
So I'm well excited the idea of another one. And it's not MMO. It's they've said it's co-op, so up to 4-player co-op, drop in, drop out.
I really liked State of Decay as well, and also agree that it was very, very janky and kind of. You just couldn't shake this feeling of, man, when this game's finished, it's going to be incredible. Well, and it never somehow got finished. But
the edition that came out on the Xbox One had a lot of improvements over what was on the 360 and the PC at launch. So I think it was closer.
Yeah.
But maybe not quite as polished as you'd hope, but it was still a really cool experience. You played State of Decay, Richard?
Briefly, it was quite janky. I picked it up on Xbox One eventually when that came out and played a couple hours, but other stuff happened, and I didn't go back to it. So yeah, they originally said it was going to be MMO, didn't they?
Well, they said they were working on an MMO type project in that world, but maybe they decided that wasn't the direction to take, and let's do co-op instead. And I'm down with that. I think that's fine. It doesn't have to be massively multiplayer. It'd be cool to have some friends in.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Then we went to the last big game announcement of the conference, which wasn't really an announcement. They went, "Hey, we've got pretty FMV for Halo Wars 2. Watch that." And it was a pretty FMV, and it was like, "This looks awesome." Do people realise what this game actually is? Because watching that, you'd be like, you'd have no idea this was an RTS. And then they did do, I think, a little bit of gameplay from the beta, which is up right now until next week. And I think it's open to everybody to check out. It's like 14 gigs on the Xbox. Might be on PC as well, actually. I do not know. But yeah, I mean, it's Halo Wars, isn't it? I mean, it's Creative Assembly instead of Ensemble, but it's still in the Ensemble mold of what they did. It's, Halo RTS. I liked the first one. I haven't played the beta yet, but it's not a Halo game I can get excited about, I guess. It's okay. I think the big surprise for me was that they're missing Holiday. It's not going to be out until late February next year, which is kind of a surprise for a Halo game to miss the holiday season. But maybe Microsoft have gone, we've got enough games in that window, there's no need to jam it in there. So
an RTS isn't a very Christmassy game, Halo or not, so I'm not surprised that they're missing that window.
But can anybody get excited about that? I mean, I was
No.
not. I wasn't clamoring for a sequel. That's for sure. So
I can't say I'm excited. I'd give it a try, but I'm probably the least excited are surely going to be Creative Assembly after what happened to Ensemble. So we'll see what happens to them after the game is released.
The thing that's always struck me as kind of odd about Halo Wars is that I can understand taking an existing franchise and then creating an RTS based in that world, if that world is somehow bringing something unique and different to the world of RTSs, but there are already plenty of RTSs with Space Marines and aliens and tanks and dune buggies and little flying things, you know, like, it just didn't seem like it ever needed to exist.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. That's totally fair. And in a world dominated by MOBAs, I have to wonder what the audience for this will even be on console. Yeah. Like, you know, who's going to want to buy this other than the Halo fan that's a diehard, like, you know, like myself or something. I mean, I just don't know. But anyway, we now came to the very big finish of the show. And Adam, you've been doing quite a bit of reading and research about this. Do you want to? Well, you might have a better grasp of the technical side of this than maybe me and Richard.
I have to say, not really, because I have been trying to find out more about like the kind of innards and the tech stuff.
It's pretty vague.
It's very, very vague.
Yeah.
It's just the word 4K gaming over and over again, everywhere you look. That seems to be basically the gist.
Well, I mean, that's something to mention as well. Before we do this, the Xbox S is going to support video output in 4K, right? Yeah. So from streaming services in ultra high def Blu-rays, right? But it's not going to be 4K gaming.
No.
Whereas the Project Scorpio coming fall 2017, which is the new piece of hardware from Microsoft, and which will be the most powerful console ever, based on the leaked specs of the Project Neo from PlayStation. This will be considerably more powerful than that. So they had a video package with lots of developers you'll recognize. Todd Howard was in there again, a bunch of others coming out saying we've given them all the feedback at Xbox, and you know, and you know, Xbox are like, we've listened to the developers, we've listened to the gamers, we're going to give you what you want, we're going to give you this super powerful console, 6 teraflops of something. Sounds large, whatever that means.
Graphical power, they say.
Yeah, is that 6 teraflops of graphical power, 4K gaming. It's going to have a 400 terabyte hard drive. No, I just made that up, but it's probably going to have something impressive. That's kind of it, though, isn't it? I think that's it for specs, really, isn't it? I mean, there's not anything else to say.
At one point in the video package, someone literally says, "These will be the best pixels you've ever seen." And when that's the level of information you're working with, you know, it's like, okay, it's going to be really good. I get it, but
I think it was a bit more technical than that, Adam. They did say it was high quality pixels.
High quality pixels, yes.
Yeah.
That's good to know. I mean, I like to be sure that my pixels have come from the best pixel mines, handpicked by the pixel miners. That's important.
What they should have come out and said was the pixels are going to be so good. They found Adam Sandler. They killed him. They digitized him. They turned him into pixels so that his pixels would be the best pixels ever. You know, just because that was a vague collection related to get them. Have you seen the film Pixels? I don't know.
We got it.
It's not very good, is it? But anyway,
I saw the reviews. That was all I needed to see.
I like the shots of what were meant to be internal components, right? And it's like, here's a shot of a CPU which had 4K on it. I'm pretty sure they don't put 4Ks on the CPU, just to brand it like that. I mean, it's just like, what is all this bullshit? I mean, why are we seeing these like random components that science and technology stuff? It's just like I was hoping for a shot of, you know, I don't know, a box, but we didn't even get that.
They're not going to show that this early. No. Probably nothing exists yet. It's just
I know, but I wanted something. But
when the company I worked for received its first Xbox One dev kit, it was literally like a circuit board in a bag. Like, it didn't have a shell, it didn't have a case. Like, that's the way these things are. Early prototype hardware is not what you'd imagine. It doesn't look consumer ready. Let's put it that way.
I totally agree and I understand. But at the same time, then why the fuck why are we doing this video package right now? You know, it's just like even so they then came out and said the reason we're talking about this so far in advance is to give developers time to actually make games and be ready for when the console comes out.
But then talk to developers about it and NDA them up the arse. Like, you don't have to go public.
It just I feel like this is the bit of the conference that they made because they went, fuck, Sony are going to announce new hardware. Yes. Fuck, get right. You know that there's a film crew. Set up a thing. We'll get some developers in. We'll put it in front of the camera. We'll do a few things, and it'll be cheap. And yeah, we'll have something. And then of course Sony were like, "Now we're not bothering."
The reason they've done this, you've got to look at the timing and what market they're going for. 4K is an emerging market in TVs, and someone wants to get a foothold in that first. If that's going to be Microsoft, then they need to say, well, we're laying claim to this now. Otherwise, they will get left behind because they're already some way behind Sony, at least in terms of market perception. So they need to get out there and say, right, no, we are competitive on the forefront of the technological bleeding edge of technology. We're there. And wait for us to release this 4K machine next year. Don't be tied into the PlayStation brand because we're going to be better. So they need to be selling that message.
I think the other important thing is, and why they've come out with such high specs, and they're mentioning this, is that the PlayStation 4.5 Project Neo will beat them to market. It will be out sooner than the end of next year. So what they're trying to say is that, yeah, you'll be able to buy the 4.5, but you're going to want to wait because our console will be better.
That's it.
So I think there is some fun games afoot here, and obviously let's go back to the beginning of this conference and the effect this had on Adam's purchasing decisions.
Yes, which it absolutely did. I promise you. I was seriously sort of like going, okay. Especially, initially I wondered whether they were going to launch the two models side by side, the Xbox One S, and still have the Xbox One on sale. In which case, I was kind of looking forward to buying just an Xbox One at a knockdown price, because the S would naturally kind of, bring it down. But it sounds like that's not what they're planning to do. And so I was like, okay, well, this does look a lot nicer than the normal Xbox One, which I always thought looked a bit like just a DVD player. I would be tempted, and then, but next year Project Scorpio, and so we're going to make that obsolete, immediately. And it just does put you off. Like, why would I want to buy a hardware that's going to be outdated in a year?
So do you think it's obsolete, though? I mean, I don't know how much better Scorpio is going to be unless you've got a 4K television. All of the games are going to be exactly the same. Are they not just going to be just sharper, shinier versions of the games that you'll be playing on Xbox One, assuming you've got an S?
They said, didn't they? Phil Spencer actually said, you won't have
no
to
one
worry.
will be left behind.
Yeah, no one will be left behind. Everything you buy will work on all of this hardware. These are going to work across the hardware. So maybe, they're trying to position it as like the enthusiast's dream machine, and then you've got the mass consumer machine, right? So they're two separate markets. So let's talk price. There's lots online today of people speculating, well, if you're going to try and get that kind of a GPU in there with that many teraflops, you're looking at $800 to $1,000 for the machine. No, and I don't think in a million years would that happen, right? The Xbox One launched at $500, right?
All new hardware sold at a loss anyway. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, but
the hardware sold at a loss.
So the Xbox One launched at $500, $430 in the UK. They won't go higher than that. They can't go higher than that because people criticise that price, if you remember, because Sony undercut with the PS4 considerably.
Yeah.
So I think it's
more likely they will. And I think when we finally see the machine and what it can do, I don't think it will be vastly better than the current generation. All the power under the hood, you can talk about how many teraflops it is, but if all that's being spent on resolution, it's not going to make a big difference.
Well, that's the one thing I really wondered about when they were pushing this 4K output, 4K gaming kind of thing is, even back in the early days of the 360, they released an update to the dashboard that gave you access to these higher resolutions and proper HD resolutions. But people immediately started to report, well, when I set it to output in this resolution, the frame rate turns to shit in my games. And there's obviously a reason for that. You can't double the resolution of your output for free. You've got to build those lovely pixels. And so it may well be that even with the Scorpio going up to when you set it to I want output in 4K, you might see a serious performance drop off.
Oh, I can't believe that. I can't believe that they wouldn't be able to do it.
It has to be. Well,
that's the thing. You're gonna have to with this processing, this new console. You're gonna have to commit to 60 frames per second minimum across all your games. You're going to have to
Well,
say
they've said
4K
that.
resolution minimum across all your games with Scorpio.
And that's
I mean,
what they've said. So logically, if they've also said that no one gets left behind, then the games themselves can't be substantially different in terms of what they're doing in graphical. You know, I want to say fidelity, but that's not the word I'm looking for. Just the way that the worlds are built. It's not going to be like on the Scorpio. There's going to be loads more polygons on show or anything. It will just look sharper, won't it? It's going to be the same game underneath.
At least to start with, maybe you'll see a divergence in, you know, the games after a while, but I can't see it happening immediately. It's tricky, isn't it? It's a tricky thing, and PlayStation going to be dealing with the same problem as well, of course, with the 4.5 and stuff. And yeah, who knows how they're going to handle it? It's Richard's making love eyes. Oh, hello, hi. Everybody wave to Richard's wife. Hello. Oh, close up on the snogging. Good time. Yeah. Let me. Oh, she's no. What a shame. Fourth member of the podcast. Yeah, that's a surprise. I see you've got. Was that the sexy red light you put on for that? Was it, Richard? You've got all red in your room. A little bit.
A bit red.
She's turned the kitchen light on. I've gone all blue now, haven't I?
You've gone blue, yeah. That was calm. Yeah. Bit blue face. So Scorpion, and that was the big surprise, weird announcement at the end of that conference. We've still got 2 more to go, guys. I hope you're with me here to the end. It's 20 past 8, and I said 2 hours, and we're at 2:20 now, and 2 conferences left. Woo! Having fun.
Let's crack through quick, shall we?
Well, I think one of them is the Ubisoft conference, and we probably don't need to spend that much time on it.
No, we do not. Well, I've got half an hour to talk about Just Dance 2017 here, guys.
Well,
I've got all this amazing material. You mean I'm going to have to chuck it? Oh my god!
Why don't you just show us your best dance move? And
I will. Well, let me just say, I love Aisha Tyler, and I think she makes the Ubisoft conference a million times better. And I'm glad she's still doing that. And let me just say, Microsoft, when I finished watching the Microsoft conference, though, I was pretty much blown away. I thought that was an amazing conference.
It was a great conference.
So I was really impressed with most of what they showed there.
I thought it was going to comfortably be the best one, and then unfortunately,
and then we had Sony. So Just Dance 2017 is what kicked off Ubisoft after one of the more heartfelt sort of mentions of what happened in Orlando, and I was really moved by some of that. And then we kind of opened up properly into the conference with Ghost Recon Wildlands. Jesus, man, another open world Ubisoft.
Yeah.
Richard. Hello, Richard.
Sorry, I was being asked how long we're going to be.
We'll be as quick as we can, I promise.
I'm back now.
So we're just talking about Ghost Recon.
Oh, did I miss the Just Dance talk?
You did. I did a little. I busted moves, didn't I, Adam? I bet you didn't know I could do a 360 on my head.
I didn't.
But,
no.
You know, I keep it quiet.
We went very in depth on Just Dance, but unfortunately that time has now passed.
We did. Oh, it was just. That was the best thing about Ubisoft's conference though. When it started off, it was like, these guys are so motherfucking French. They're opening the conference with a dance number. I love it. I love it. It was so good. And then Aisha came out and did her. You know, how many times can I swear in 30 seconds? Which is kind of her thing. Which is great. I love her. And then we got Ghost Recon Wildlands, which is Ghost Recon open world Ubisoft game, the biggest open world we've done yet. And my response was, oh yay. Because the others were so fucking small. So, you know, I just don't need that in my life. And then we had that amazing, the thing I love at Ubisoft, they do it every year, the fake gamer chatter.
Yes.
When they're playing multiplayer games. So funny. Tango down, moving into intercept. Nobody speaks like that on Xbox Live. No one.
And strongly suggesting throughout, without ever really saying it, that this is actually in-game shout-outs, that this is like ambient dialogue from the game, when of course it's not. It's like simulated gamer chat, and it annoys me. Annoys me every time.
The best bit I liked about the demo they showed, which was an extensive gameplay demo as well as a trailer as well, was the bit when the guy fucked up, and he went into and then it all kind of went to shit, and then they all had to sort of like, you know, because it was annoyingly tactical at the start, and I'm like, no, this was not what would happen. That's just not how people play games in reality. And then a guy fucked up, and I was like, and now everything's like they're all scrambling and trying to catch the guy, and you know, helicopters and bike chase and all of that. And I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. I could see myself enjoying this horrible, horrible alternative reality for poor old Bolivia, which is
that is another
into a narco state.
I feel like it seems to be my role now to just constantly question the wisdom of certain settings. But again, like, this is a seriously tone-deaf exploration of the war on drugs. Like, and fine, you know, but they seem to be playing it kind of serious, you know? Like, it's fine if you want to do a crazy, I can't remember the damn game, but there was a series of games that did do kind of war on drugs in Mexico and these sorts of, you know, South American states, but did it in a very tongue-in-cheek way. And
I think you're talking about Army of Two, possibly.
Army of Two did it as well, and they got away with it because they.
Well, they was hilarious. Yeah.
But this is quite po-faced.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And such a
well,
brutally simplistic version of a complex geopolitical situation.
The idea of the ghosts in this situation is that the ghosts have basically been given carte blanche and free reign to do whatever the fuck they like with the full support of the Americans' industrial military complex behind them to deal with the problem in Bolivia however they like. So just go in there and fuck everyone up.
Because they're selling us drugs that we're buying. So how naughty of them. Don't commit some war crimes. Like,
yeah, it just felt wrong, but probably a lot of fun to play.
It looked fun. Like, it looked great.
Did you see that one, Richard? Any of the Ghost Recon Wildlands stuff?
I didn't see any of the UV stuff.
What?
I don't know. I used to like Ghost Recon, but
this doesn't. It doesn't look. It doesn't look like the Ghost Recon you remember though.
No,
not at all. No.
It's got more in common with Mercenaries.
It's been dated though. We're getting it March 7th next year. Yes, and it does feel a bit more like Mercenaries. Yeah, absolutely. And then they moved on to probably my favourite bit of the entire show, because Matt Stone and Trey Parker came out and did I get that right? Matt Stone and Trey Parker, something like that. Yes. The South Park guys came out and presented South Park: The Fractured Butthole, which looks to be the most perfect lampooning of the superhero sort of fad that we have in movies and TV and everything right now. It just looked, just tonally perfect. I love South Park anyway. I was so excited to see PC Principal at the end of the trailer. And if you don't watch South Park, you won't know who the fuck that is. But trust me, it was amazing. And yeah, just nailing the whole idea. The reason the kids want to do superheroes is not because they want to be superheroes, but because they want to have successful franchises. And I just love that idea. It's just so brilliant. So Marvel versus DC, and they're doing their own civil war in it and everything, and it's just loving it. It looks so good. It's got a revamped combat system as well, so it's going to be a bit more in depth, 3D space, timing, more kind of engagement with the combat and stuff. And did you guys both play Stick of Truth?
I played a bit of it. It was all right. It didn't really grab me.
It was all right.
I bought it 2 weeks ago. It was on sale, wasn't it?
Yes.
£7 or something, so I've got that on my list.
Neither of you big South Park people, then?
I wouldn't say big. I like it. And I have to say, from the time I've spent with the game so far, only an hour or so, I don't know how you could make a game look more like South Park. It's pretty faithful.
What about you, Adam? Not a big South Park guy?
I was a big South Park guy, back in its day. I think it seems like it's run its course a bit. I don't think the newer episodes are as good as the earlier ones.
It goes up and down like anything like that. I mean, it very much, because there's so much about current affairs that it very much depends on what their source material is at the time. But I always eagerly look forward to a new season. But yeah, I think that looks cool. That's coming December the 6th. Actually, that's the first time we've had a release date on that, which isn't as far off as I thought it would be, which is pretty cool. The Division Survival DLC was revealed here at this conference. I got it wrong earlier, and it looks very snowy. So that's that. Who cares? Not many people. Then Palmer Lucky came out and played Eagle Flight in VR with some Ubisoft people. That game looks shit, but Palmer Lucky, cool. Why not? I just don't care about eagles fighting over prey in Paris, which has been reclaimed by nature. Fuck.
Sure.
Seriously. It didn't particularly excite me. After that, we got some more VR, because it turns out everybody's doing VR now.
Yeah.
And which is fine. This one was kind of amusing, I guess, which was Star Trek Bridge Crew.
Oh yeah.
Which had a video of Jerry Ryan, LeVar Burton, and Carl Urban from various different Star Trek franchises, all in VR, all playing different roles on the bridge of a starship, and loving it, supposedly. But let's not forget, these people are actors, so they're probably quite good at pretending to love things. You know?
And let's also not forget Ubisoft's track record for jumping feet first into new technologies and then spending about £20 on development.
Do you remember the laser tag game from like 4 years ago, Richard? Do you remember the laser tag game?
Next stuff, like Fighter Unleashed or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, you're... The other great question is, who is going to have in their house like 3 PCs, 3 Oculus Rifts, and people to play that game? I mean, how much money do you have? I mean, what the fuck, man? Like, who's that for? Where are you going to play that? But I'd love it. I mean, I'd love to be the captain of a starship. And you're fully immersed and all this. It'd be amazing, but I can't see it ever being like an affordable possibility for normal people like myself. That just seems impossible. After that, we got For Honor. Now, do you remember For Honor being revealed last year, Richard, at Ubisoft?
No.
This is the melee-driven, kind of like medieval combat-y game.
Oh, I do remember.
Well, it's different now. They've decided to give it like a story, and they showed the single player off. And well, it kind of looked a lot like Rise, but kind of more hack and slashy than Rise, less button sort of matching kind of gameplay. I didn't think it looked that great, to be honest. I think the showing last year with the multiplayer looked interesting, and the single player stuff now just looked a bit tacked on and a bit didn't. I don't know. How did you feel about it, Adam?
So I do remember it being shown at the last E3, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it looked really good. And then all my peers told me they thought it looked shite. But I thought it looked alright. And I agree with you completely that I think it's gone a bit backwards, maybe, because it did look much more... Again, it almost reminded me of Dynasty Warriors. Mm-hmm. It had that same problem of, like, you're in the middle of a massive battlefield surrounded by enemy troops, and then they attack you one at a time or in little groups, and you've got a moveset that's designed to deal with that. And so it kind of loses a lot of its sort of immersive reality just in how phony everything kind of looked. Yeah, a bit disappointing.
It did feel like it had gone backwards. It felt like they looked at the game they had last year and went, well, this isn't a game that will sell. This isn't like a marketable product. So let's make it a game that we can put in a pigeonhole and say this is what it is. Which just felt a bit disappointing, really. But hey, okay, we'll see. I mean, that's got a release date of next Valentine's Day, 14th of February next year. So it's still got plenty of time in development. So who knows? It could tighten up. After that, they did Ubisoft. This is the great thing about Ubisoft. They can pivot from a game like that to a little independent game, which was Grow Home, and they announced the sequel Grow Up, and that's coming out in August, and it's going to be multi-platform now. So it's not just going to be on PC; it's going to be on consoles as well, which is great because that was a fun little game that more people should get to play. I really liked that. I played it on PC, and then after that, they then pivoted to Trials of the Blood Dragon, which is this crazy mashup of Far Cry Blood Dragon with the Trials teams, and they've kind of come together to make this. I don't know how to describe it really, but it's this 80s neon psychedelic action motorcycle game that's out right now. So you can go and buy that right now if you like. And then they decided to make everybody fall asleep, and they brought out this guy that seemed to be a 90-year-old producer, so he could talk about how great it was being a multi-million-dollar, producer in Hollywood for Assassin's Creed films. And I was like, I'll have a little nap. I was quite tired at this point, so I was like, oh, okay, cool.
I remember this didn't even seem like it belonged on the E3 stage. Like I couldn't understand why they did this at all.
This was probably the weirdest thing out of all the conferences, I think, this year. Like, if you remember back in years of yore, you'd have, Sony come out and spend 20 minutes talking about facts and figures. That's what this felt like, a very retro style of conference sort of behavior, where you'd have just somebody come out and have a chat about how great Michael Fassbender is, and and Tyler can just talk about how much he really wants to see his cock again, alluding to it as heavily as possible throughout the entirety of that. I mean, she had a nice moment earlier with LeVar Burton when he came out and she basically fan geeked all over him, which was kind of amusing, I suppose. That's kind of a stick. But yeah, this one was a bit dull. And then they showed like some behind the scenes stuff with some new footage from the film. I think the Assassin's Creed film looks amazing. I can't wait to see it, but it didn't need to be at this conference at all. So.
Yeah.
And then we got more Watch Dogs 2 stuff after that, which was more of what we'd seen. This was the big kind of gameplay reveal, unlike the announcement trailers and stuff we'd had from before. So we got a chunky bit of Marcus action infiltrating this penthouse and some story beats and stuff like that. And I think it looks really, really, really good.
So one really interesting thing that happened in that video was he says, this is just one of many ways you could tackle the situation. It's possible to complete this mission without ever setting foot in the penthouse. And, okay, that's kind of cool. I'm guessing that's going to mostly involve the drone.
Yeah.
But I sort of, like, the designer in me kind of tweaked a bit and thought, well, that sounds much easier than what you're doing. So won't players just always do things that way? Like, won't they just hyper-level their distance hacking abilities and just walk through the game pointing at things to make them just switch off? Like, I don't know. It just seemed an odd statement. I'm interested to see how like true that is and how they have addressed the balance problems that they'll throw.
And then Ubisoft, as they like to do, closed the conference with an announcement of a new IP, which was Steep, which is being made by a developer whose name I can't remember, but basically is in the Alps somewhere. And they're making a game about, well, their local environment, I suppose. And it looked gorgeous, and it's this kind of big, it's like a mountain simulator, if you like. It's this, so this, you're like an extreme sports dude, and you're going to shred the gnar hard, I think. So you're, you know, snowboarding, skiing, paragliding, wingsuiting, various extreme sports activities that you would do on a mountainside, all kind of combining together with some cool replay features and some cool sort of modes to set challenges to your friends. Like I said, the snow looked amazing. The environment looked stunning. It looks like the kind of game it'll be a nice place to chill out, you know, especially at the end of the year when you've got lots of shooters and stuff. If you just want to go up on the mountain, as it were, with your friends and just not play a shooter, not play an open world game, and just sort of relax, bum about a bit, you know, do a bit of snowboarding, skiing. It looked very accessible, and at the same time, the thing that really surprised me, you've got all these kind of like crazy looking, like guys got a clown mask on and stuff as he's snowboarding. Guys, you know, then you were doing a wingsuit challenge and you saw a guy miss a thing on a wingsuit and crash into the ground screaming, dead.
Yes.
You know, and I was kind of like, oh, well, that's kind of stressful. I was really chilled out until that happened. Jesus Christ. It was a slight sort of juxtaposition there between the whole, hey, let's just hang out. Oh my God, Jim's dead. Oh, Jim. Broken his spine in 12 places. And it was all just a bit like, oh, okay. So I guess they sort of must have been developing it and gone, we need to make this an actual game with sort of consequences, otherwise people won't play it, I guess. I don't know. But it looked cool, though. It looked cool. I was enjoying it. Adam, did you enjoy it? I won't ask Richard.
That was interesting when you were describing it, because I was watching Richard's face, and Richard's face was much like mine watching the trailer, where you're sort of going...
You know what? I was actually watching the trailer just...
Okay. So like, you watch it and you sort of go, oh, this looks kind of interesting and kind of unique and kind of cool. What's the game, though? Like, what do I do? Where's the progression mechanic? Why do I... Like, any time
I don't know if you need one. No, if the world itself is fun enough to play in. But what struck me was, you know, different to any snowboarding game or game in that sort of environment over the past 15 years, it wasn't telling me how fun it was. And that's a good thing, because snowboarding games tell you that far too much.
I agree.
Look how cool we are. We're so gnarly. Look at my pink shorts. No, I just want to snowboard. But yeah, if it does a job of letting you snowboard naturally down a mountain, that is all you need, isn't it? You don't need all the frippery of...
See, I'm not sure I agree, because every time a developer has tried to do this, hey, we just give you a situation and you decide, you make your own goals, you make your own fun, it ends up feeling very empty and like they've only done half a job. Like, you kind of need some structure put on it. You kind of, you know, you are ultimately playing a game to have moments of triumph that are not just self-generated, but for the game itself to say, you are now good at me, you know, you have succeeded, and I didn't see a lot of evidence of that.
No, but I don't know. I tend to agree with you. I'd meet you halfway. I mean, what I don't want to see is high score multipliers plastered
Oh,
all
no,
over the
absolutely not.
screen.
Yeah.
You can do too much in the way of giving
Yeah.
incentives to achieve. So if they've taken a stripped back approach but still got something to work towards, then that's the ideal balance. And it looks like, at least from a visual point of view, they're on track.
Okay. That sounds like we pretty much agree then. Yeah.
And then we had a slightly weird moment at the very end of the conference, which I thought was quite moving. When you take a couple of things into account, Aisha Tyler got all the developers back out on the stage, and Yves Guillemot came out, and he basically said goodbye. In a way that's weird when you take into account a couple of things. I mean, this was Ubisoft's 30th birthday conference as well, but I also felt like, what with Vivendi hanging over Ubisoft right now like a hawk that will tear it to shreds and dominate it in the coming months, and when they do, Yves will be out. I think he was saying goodbye because I don't think he thinks he's going to be there next year, which was quite emotional, and it was quite sad. And clearly he has a passion for that company, and I've always enjoyed when he does his bits at that presentation. He's so wonderfully French and European, and he brings such a great sensibility to the company. And I get the impression that he really leads it, and he really leads the projects that they push, and really is interested in what they produce. And with Vivendi almost certainly going to be pushing through this hostile takeover, Ubisoft could become a very different company, I suppose, in the next sort of couple of years, which could be good, could be bad, but it'll be a shame to see Yves go if that's what happens. So, yeah, I don't know if you guys picked up on that as well, but it certainly felt like the end to me. Yeah.
It seems so final and so the end. I actually found myself wondering, like, God, is there like something I don't know here? Is he ill or something? Like, it really felt like a farewell. It was kind of, I definitely agree.
Yes. And so, this brings us to the final conference, and oh boy, was it a show. I mean, holy shit. So, Sony, they rock up in one of the grandest venues I've ever seen at E3. They have a live multi-piece orchestra in the orchestra pit, being led by, I think it was some kind of famous conductor, but I don't know who it was. And, a really big deal. And they're like, oh, and, I'm sat there thinking before it starts, what are they going to have? They've not got hardware. What are they going to do? This is going to be tricky. Microsoft have just blown it out of the park with their big announcements, real surprises. Gee, Sony could struggle here. It's going to be really interesting, right? So they start off with God of War, not God of War, numbered sequel, reboot. God of War. We've gone Norse mythology. We've changed the way the game looks. It looks stunning. The camera's been pulled in. They've toned back some of the extreme cartoony violence. It's this kind of wilderness setting. He's got some kind of adopted son or something's going on there. There's interesting story elements. The game looks fantastic. It definitely seems to be playing differently and looking differently. What did you guys think of it? I've never been a big God of War fan. I've always kind of appreciated it from afar. But what did you guys think of that as an opener to the conference?
I loved it, and I was bored of God of War. But they've done things within this video, 8-9 minute video, that I would be impressed with in any game, let alone one that isn't well known for its emotional restraint and tone, But some of the moments in this were just spellbinding. The way that Kratos talks to his son so forcefully and angrily, and then pulls himself back and realizes, no, I'm a dad. I need to show some restraint here.
That moment at the end of the trailer, where he helps him kill the deer.
Yeah, and he reaches out to comfort him, and then
he pulls himself back.
Yeah.
Oh my God, man!
Wow.
Killed me. Like, Jesus Christ, that was powerful.
Yeah, and also the thing that astonished me about all of that was that was the opening to a conference, And one of the themes I'm going to possibly run into the ground while we discuss the Sony conference and why I think theirs was the best was that after seeing a very impressive showing from Xbox, in which all of their game footage was very action-oriented, very pyrotechnics, very video gamey, Sony were coming at it with like storytelling and creativity and settings and unique worlds, and so like genuinely at the end of that trailer, I'd sort of missed the very start of it. I came in about halfway through, and so I didn't know what game I was seeing. And when it ends with the God of War logo, I'm like, I practically spilled my drink. I'm like, there's no way that's a God of War game. God of War is about, tearing the wings off mythological creatures and gouging eyes. It's not tender parenting dilemmas on a snowy mountain. Like, this was incredible. And to open your conference like that is like balls the size of grapefruits. Unbelievable.
It set a tone for the opening of this conference, which they just rolled with. Like, they just rolled from one game to another, all of them showing a surprising level of emotional kind of maturity that you don't usually get from an E3 press conference. It was a stunning debut, and it's made me proper excited for a God of War game, and I've never been excited for a God of War game before. It's just cool to see that Kratos has grown up, like, with the gamers that have grown up playing with Kratos. He has matured. And by the way, that was a boss fucking beard, like boss beard, man. Seriously, rocking it. And then we went on to a new project from Sony Bend. And this was a surprising one. This is Days Gone, and it took me a minute to realise who the lead guy was, and it was Sam Witwer, also known as Starkiller, if you remember him in the Force Unleashed games, and TV actor. And basically, his likeness and performance has been captured into this game, which I can only describe as Sons of Anarchy meets World War Z. Mm-hmm. So it's biker gangs and all of the crazy, weird, violent sort of political shit that entails, mixed with World War Z style zombies. We got gameplay for this right at the end of the conference, but we'll talk about it now. And it looked genuinely oppressive, terrifying, unrelenting zombies that like they were in World War Z, swarming ant-like creatures that were incredibly fast, and just you couldn't stop them. And it was, I mean, how that's going to work in gameplay, I thought visually very impressive. Technologically, all those animations running on the screen at the same time fluidly look fantastic, and you've got that sort of character-driven performance that you're going to get from having a fully mocapped actor in the lead and stuff like that. Someone who knows his video game performances as well. So totally impressed with that. Really surprised how cool that was as well. What did you guys think of it? Days Gone.
I kind of feel we've got enough of that sort of thing. Impressive as it was, it looked good, looked great. But I don't know. I was left feeling. I wish this was Last of Us 2.
That's fair.
I mean, I agree, but I think this is there are too many fucking zombie games. Let's just go there. No doubt, this is true. But they did feel like it was a different type of zombie game. At least different enough. No.
Yeah, I think the comparison to something like Last of Us is actually quite interesting. Yeah. It did have that sort of feel to me. Like, I sort of thought this is basically the same setting, isn't it?
Mm.
I mean, it's Pacific Northwest, so I think it actually might be the same setting, yeah. But at the same time, it felt more actiony to me. No crafting, seemingly infinite fucking ammo, at least in the demo. I don't know. It didn't feel like they were going for the same kind of horror tenseness. It felt more like an action experience, though it definitely was creepy and quite sort of threatening and oppressive at the end. Definitely worth checking out all the Days Gone stuff, though. Really, it's cool to see new IP, man. Yeah. I always get excited to see new IP. Then we got a Last Guardian trailer, and my first reaction to that was, oh great, another fucking Last Guardian trailer. And then we got a release date, October the 25th, which is not that long away. So that game is actually coming out. And
it might help to clarify that is this year as well.
Yes, sorry. That's this year, not 2018. That's fair. I mean, considering. My big worry here is that game is just going to suck. It's been in development so long, and there's so much hype, and how could it possibly live up to it?
The problem with all those games that kind of from that stable, from Ico onwards, and what was it bloody called?
Shadow of Colossus.
Shadow of the Colossus. Is whenever I see gameplay footage of them, you're not quite sure if you're seeing gameplay footage. Like, they have this effect of looking like a cutscene nearly all the time, and so I don't know how much of that trailer was. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to get a judgment of what it's going to be like to play this game. So, I mean, it looks very nice. The main character's looking a bit odd. It looks kind of shell shadedy and sort of flat in a way that didn't really gel with the rest of the world.
The whole game looks kind of dated to me.
It did look a bit old.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, because it's been in development for a million years, so it's starting to show that, I think. And even though it's got an art style that kind of isn't neat, trying to be photorealistic, it's still looking a bit low res, low poly kind of character models and environments and stuff. And it's like, yeah, well, look at what came next. You compare. We'll just go straight into it. Compare Horizon Zero Dawn by Guerrilla with The Last Guardian. I mean, fucking hell, how cool does Horizon look? Jesus.
That is a studio that's enjoying not doing Killzone anymore, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
They've been let free on that. It looks fantastic.
It's the crazy mishmash of this post-apocalyptic world. Humans have gone back to tribal kind of like cavemen, but we have these roaming robot things everywhere. And it's like, it started quite small, and then the bit where she captures the mount, and she's riding off, and all of a sudden you've got these like towering giant ones walking through the lake, and it's like the scale is just off the chain, and you're like, oh my god, this is stunning. And you've got, I think, a really cool looking main character there. She seems really compelling and interesting and layered. And this just world, I want to explore that world. I want to get into that world and find out what it's all about and why things are the way they are. I'm totally intrigued by it.
I think that was the thing for me. I was like, this is a unique setting. Like, I don't know anything about this world, and I want to know everything about this world. This is interesting and engaging and jaw-droppingly beautiful.
Yeah.
At every frame, just incredible and fascinating. And then the actual gameplay, all right, it's a little bit rote. It's kind of third-person action-adventure-y, combat-y stuff. But there were some nice touches there. The grappling mechanic.
Yeah, the tethering.
Really interesting. The tethering
was really cool, yeah.
I don't know if I'm guessing they will have just captured footage set to be really so that everything that happens in it looks as nice as possible. But dear God, the animations on that creature when she tethers it and it's pulling against the tethers, like, that's good. There's got to be some procedural work going in there or something, because God, it looked good. Like, everything just jaw on the floor, blew me away.
I got the impression that was like meant to be quite early game. So she's facing this enemy in that village, and it felt like a tricky fight. It felt like it wasn't easy, and some thought and strategy had to go into it. We don't know what difficulty is being played on, etc. But and it was a real slog, and they played it really well. I mean, a couple of times it looked like she was close to death and could have died, and they pulled it out, and then came back to win the day and all of that. And yeah, just compelling stuff. That game's always been interesting, but I think every time we see it, it looks that bit better. We're looking at late February next year for that. So if it doesn't slip again, we've got there's a lot of games queued up for like early next year. So I think quite a few will end up going into the summer and then the fall. But yeah, as always now, as to be expected now, sadly. But yeah, it was really strong, and it didn't stop there. It kept going. And once again, I have been sucked in by David Cage and Quantic Dream, and I should know better at this point, right? You go back to Indigo Prophecy, cool game, bit weird. Heavy Rain, probably the best thing they've done, though still got lots of problems. Beyond Two Souls, yeah, not great, but some good ideas. And now Detroit, Become Human, where we're looking at these kind of like, what does it mean to be human? Ethical debates about androids and all of those different choice mechanics and the investigation mechanics in there and stuff. And I'm like, do you know what? I'm in. David Cage, you motherfucker. You've done it again. Now, do these laughs and chuckles mean both of you guys are resisting the charms of Mr. Cage this time?
No, it means I know publicly I should laugh at you, but secretly I'm with you.
Fair enough.
I think for me, I've never forgiven David Cage for the intro to Indigo Prophecy, or Fahrenheit, whatever it was called, where literally the opening scene of the game is him stepping out of the bar and out of the frame and directly addressing the player, telling you how great he is. Like, this is a video game unlike anything you've ever played. And you're like, yeah, I'll be the judge of that, David. Sit back down.
That's kind of why I love him. He's like this self-appointed author of video games. He's never earned this status, but he goes around telling people that he is this amazing creative force, and I kind of just love the arrogance of him. You can't deny that he comes up with some pretty wacky shit. Like,
he does.
He does try things.
And he's not afraid of a sex mini game, I'll give him that much.
No, definitely not.
But, like...
the thing I love about him the most is that, like, for all of his high ideas, his grand visions, the thing he's most famous for is press X for Jason, you know?
I just made eggs a lot in that game. Lots of eggs. I made eggs for Jason in case he ever came back. Yeah, I love that the robot stuff. I've loved all of that sort of science fiction since I was a kid. The Asimov laws of robotics and all of that stuff. Yeah. So seeing games and concepts that challenge those and go down those roads and ask those questions of what it is to be human and what it is to be artificial and what the differences are. I'm in. I just love all the Blade Runner-esque style things that just that's my wheelhouse. So I'm always going to go down that road.
I'm certainly interested to see how it turns out. I think anytime someone sells a game on that kind of massively branching plot line, I start to wonder about duration, and I start to wonder whether they'll just
think that there's a whole game, that roof scene is that it?
Well, there's a bit one of the branching storylines there is that your character gets shot in the head. Yeah. And I'm like, is that game over? Are there multiple playable characters? Yeah. We don't know anything yet, you know. So, I mean, obviously in the past he's done the multiple playable character sort of motif. I think that did work really well in Heavy Rain, actually. Like, if one of your characters died, you just carry on as another one. You know, and you just lose that branch.
But it's like, you remember in Project Indigo, it opens with that scene in the bar where you find the dead body and you've got to decide how much you're going to try and cover it up, whether you're just going to run for it straight away. Mm-hmm. And it seems like all that's going to matter, and it seems like the whole game's going to be like that. And very quickly, those more branching kind of ideas are abandoned in favour of a fairly linear kind of adventure gamey sort of structure. Well, that was his I'm always suspicious.
He's done better since then, to be fair.
Yeah, not true.
Right, so I thought now, this was the bit I was dreading. PlayStation VR came from the screen. I went, right, that's it. 45 minutes of them waffling on about PlayStation VR, which we are not going to be able to grasp or enjoy because guess what? You need to fucking play these games to get it. Yeah. But it wasn't that, because they first of all came out with a launch date, which was October the 13th, which has actually been confirmed now as Europe as well. And they said 50 games on it by the end of the year, which is a pretty big, you know, that's a pretty hefty launch from October to the end of December. If they keep up that promise, that's impressive. And then after that, we went straight into only a few sort of demos, like snippets, videos. The first one was this creepy-looking horror game, a little bit PT, a little bit, I don't know, just run-down, gothic kind of horror. Turns out it's Resident Evil 7, which is going to be fully playable in VR and coming out in January on multiple platforms, but on PlayStation, like I said, fully playable in the VR experience, and a demo for which is out right now. I've played the demo, and I can tell you about that. But first of all, what did you guys think of this announcement? The fact that it's Resident Evil 7 and is set chronologically after 6, and you know that they're going down this very different route, it would seem, for Resident Evil.
It's like we said last time, isn't it, that they needed to reinvent Resident Evil and go back to basics, really. Even if this is set after the events of 6, it is back to the original ethos, and in a sense of just a haunted house, and that's your lot. It's very different in tone, though, and I think it's taking the ground of Silent Hills, which is obviously, you know, that's relinquished its position, and given Resident Evil some space to move into a more serious, more proper horror tone territory. So that's a welcome move. I haven't played the demo. I don't know what you thought of that, Ken. Was it any good?
I will moment. I'm just going to get Adam's impression first if he's a Resi fan. Then
I'm not a particularly big Resi fan. I think it's interesting, like exactly what Richard just said. You know, 4 and 5 were more or less just action games by this point. It really had started to feel like just an over-the-shoulder shooter. And they seem to be moving back towards more of a kind of classic survival horror setting and a creepy environment. And it's interesting. I mean, that trailer, like almost nothing happens in it, but it's just dripping with atmosphere. So clearly, like you said, going more in a sort of PT direction. Be interesting to see how how making a game to work on VR and non-VR actually works. Like, I would have thought the demands of the two platforms were extremely different, but
it's made a big impact on Resident. That decision has made a big impact because the most immediate thing that you see is it's first person, and that's, you know, Resident Evil has always been based around a character. You can argue the merits of whether they're decent characters or not. That's part of the appeal, but that's going to be, for better or worse, a big change for Resident Evil.
Yeah.
So, the demo. First things first, I don't think this first-person perspective or this demo is actually going to be indicative of what the game is. I think, like Silent Hills and PT, the demo is its own creature to try and set a tone rather than actually showing you what the game is. The demo is very much, we saw PT, we saw that project that just got cancelled, I've forgotten its name already.
Silent Hills.
No, the other one that wasn't. The one that they did based on PT that wasn't Silent Hills. Remember? The one that was a Kickstarter or something, and it was something like that, a project, and they just got...
Oh, Allison Road.
Allison Road, yeah. So they saw that and went, hey, this is cool, people like this, let's do a demo like that. But the problem is that PT did it better. It's really rote, and I get scared at the drop of a hat, and I didn't find this scary. I just thought it was really, really predictable. It felt a bit like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the films VHS, the horror anthology films, all about the video camera stuff. There's moments like, it's a lot like that in this. So there's a couple of bits that deal with like sort of time aspects. So there's a bit that's set before the main bit of the game. You're watching you basically find a videotape in this house, you play it, then you play what's on the videotape, and then you go back to watch the tape. It's a clever sort of narrative structure, but at the same time, like I said, it's not scary, and it's just really obvious. I predicted every horror jump before it happened, basically, and it's cool that they're trying something different, but I don't think that's what Resident Evil will be.
Does it feel like this is part of the actual game, or is it just kind of a sandboxy?
I feel like this is. It's not sandboxy. It's very, very small environment, and it's. I think this has just been made to drum up interest for the Resident Evil franchise, but I don't think this will be anything like the game actually is. Much like they said with PT.
Like PT.
Yeah, exactly the same. That it was a bespoke thing to tease the project. Yeah. But the difference with PT, of course, was that PT was really hard, and that you only found out it was Silent Hills if you actually beat the demo. Whereas this, you can't fail the demo, and you find out it's Resident Evil. Well, it says what it is on the tip, so there's no sort of tease about it or sort of smart marketing about it. It's just they've just done it because they're cashing in on PT, and it's a shame. But it was kind of cool, but. You're more of a horror gamer than me anyway, Richard. I think when you play it, I'll be interested to find your opinion on it. But I was pretty like, yeah, just whatever. So yeah, so I'm still looking forward to seeing what they do. I mean, if they're what they're doing with this demo is set a tone for Resident Evil 7, that it's going to be tonally very different to where we were with 6. That's great. That I'm excited about. But on the merits of the demo itself, just not very good.
It's quite high stakes for them because reputationally they've got a lot to prove now, with 6 being so poorly received, and by virtue of the fact that the start of each new Resident Evil trilogy is always fucking brilliant, isn't it? So if they don't live up to that with 7, then I don't know. I think Capcom are going to be in real trouble. They've already announced the release date. It's not far off, is it? When is it coming?
This
January.
is January, yeah.
So at this stage, they must be pretty happy with what they've got to have announced the release.
Yep. Right. Then we had some more. We had Farpoint, which looked like it was quite interesting, and then it got a bit generic towards the end. VR kind of crash spaceship exploration planet stuff, and then it seemed to become a bit of a actiony shooter thing. I don't know. Looked like a bit of classic sci-fi. What did you guys think of that one?
I think you've summed it up precisely. It starts off interesting, turns into kind of Destiny / Halo sort of thing, and got a lot less interesting.
I'm waiting for Richard to say something, but he didn't say anything.
I did say meh already. That was
You said meh.
Time.
Another in-depth analysis from Richard then. Obviously, I got excited about Star Wars Battlefront X-Wing VR mission because flying an X-Wing in VR, man, so cool.
Yeah.
But how could I not get excited about the concept of that? I get the impression that's going to be a very slight game, though. The fact that it's called a VR mission, I suspect there's not a lot of game there, and it was a very, very brief trailer. We also then got what wasn't really a trailer, more of an announcement that Rocksteady are doing something based in the Batman Arkham universe for VR, but we didn't really see any game for that. It just, the picture of Batman came up and that was kind of it.
I think this announcement of 50 games this year, I think if they do achieve 50 games, it's because they're going to be quite slight experiences.
That's it. I think calling them games is a bit disingenuous. I think calling them a VR experience would be a better way of describing it. And then after that, we got what was a really strange demo for Final Fantasy VR. I was like, what is this game? It just looked like bad Final Fantasy in first person. But, there was a bit where you're staring at a female character's tits. And I'm like, oh, I guess they know their audience for a Final Fantasy game. Fair enough. And I just like, God damn, this is awkward and weird. That was very strange. Do you know what the weirdest thing about all this was, though? Right, so the VR stuff finished at that point, but they then showed Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, and for quite a while, I thought this was a generic sci-fi VR shooter. And it took me a while to realise I was actually watching Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, because it just rolled straight into it off the back of VR, and it looked a bit shit. So I was a bit like, oh, is this just some sci-fi shooter in VR? Oh, okay, cool. And then it's like, oh no, this is Call of Duty. Oh, and then it got a bit better. It got a bit better, didn't it? It picked up. I thought the space combat and stuff looked interesting-ish, but it just looked a bit like, hop here with your silly grapple hook thing and shoot a guy. Now go over here and shoot a guy, and it's Call of Duty. That's what you do.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but it opened with you flying a spaceship, didn't it? Like you were literally in a space fighter, dogfighting.
You walked through some corridors first.
Okay, maybe
on the bridge of the starship. You walked through some corridors, then you got in a ship. Yeah, so the whole time I thought this was on rails and VR.
But so my point is that for a long time the trailer reads as if you're looking at a space dogfighting combat game.
Yeah.
And then you crack the cockpit and you float out into space and start grappling hook onto the edge of opposing capital ships and running around.
Yeah.
And that was the exact moment where I lost interest. Like up until then I was like, ooh, this looks cool. I want to fly spaceships in space. I always have and I always will. And I used to love these sorts of games. I was a big free space guy. I played Freelancer, played Starlancer, got anything like that. Wing Commander even. I didn't care. Anything.
I love Freelancer.
And yeah, then it becomes just Call of Duty in space, and I was disappointed.
The sad thing is the trailer is trying to sell you on the idea that there's going to be freedom of movement here, that you're going to be able to get into the spaceship and fly off and fly back. But you have to remind yourself it's Call of Duty, and you won't be able to. It's all going to be scripted. The whole thing is going to be scripted, and it's like it's trying to convince you that it's going to be something that it just isn't. And yeah, I mean, and when I thought it was VR, I was like, oh, this looks quite good for a VR game. And then when I realised it was Call of Duty, I went, oh, this doesn't look very good at all. So it's kind of like, I mean, I was like, it's really good. Oh, no, it's kind of shit. So, yeah, I went through a roller coaster of emotion. I mean, I will enjoy it probably because it's going to be sci-fi shooter bullshit. So it will probably be quite fun. I've still not played last year's Black Ops, but I'm probably more likely to play this one. I really enjoyed Advanced Warfare. I thought that was a very good game, but
in the year of Titanfall 2, though, I think
that's it, isn't it? Yeah. Titanfall 2, which comes out a week before Battlefield 1, because EA are insane. But there you go. But I thought it was interesting. We only got this demo of Call of Duty only at Sony.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, if there's any doubt who's winning the console war, the fact that Activision do their Call of Duty stuff in the Sony conference, I'm afraid is writing on the wall.
Yeah, but it's also interesting because in the past, even if one console manufacturer had a big deal with Call of Duty, they'd still show it at multiple conferences because it was such a draw. Now it was just sort of thrown in at the end of the VR segment, and kind of given no fanfare and no stage demo either. I really think they've kind of got to that realization with that. While Battlefront showed up at multiple conferences, Call of Duty isn't the draw it used to be.
No, it used to close the conference, didn't it?
It was huge, man. For quite a while there, it was absolutely massive. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about the next announcement, but I was left pretty cold because I've never had a particular love for Crash Bandicoot. But people got really excited about the idea of remasters of 1, 2, and Warped, and him showing up in Skylanders, and I'm just like,
okay.
I've had my fill of Crash Bandicoot from Uncharted 4.
I mean, it's going to have to be a hell of a remaster, because Crash Bandicoot 1, if that's what they're remastering, that was a PS1 game, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was crude. You're going to have to remaster the ever-living fuck out of that.
It's literally a mini-game in Uncharted 4 now.
Yeah, like...
yeah, it is.
Unless you're giving it away for free as a sort of marketplace type thing, but...
We're kind of in the family-friendly bit of the show here for Sony, because after Crash Bandicoot they showed off Lego Star Wars Force Awakens, and I am really excited about that game. That trailer charmed the pants off of me with its humour mixed in with the story of the film, and those already very engaging characters that I've absolutely already fallen in love with. And I just thought it looked like so much fun. The demo's out now. I've played the demo start to finish and had a great time. And that's out at the end of the month. I'm quite looking forward to playing that, to be honest.
I'll be sure to download that demo.
Because you love the Lego game.
I see a 1 out of 5-star review from Richard on the horizon.
The one thing I will say, in the video, you can see one of the cutscenes has got the Empire guy reporting that everyone's escaped to Kylo Ren. It's Kylo Ren's bedroom, and he's got a Darth Vader light shade on the light, and that's just wonderful.
In the demo.
Such a beautiful little throwaway detail.
Well, no, it's not just that. In the demo, you see his whole room is covered in Darth Vader merchandise. He's got like Darth Vader posters.
I see.
You name it.
Just nice.
He's a massive fan of Darth Vader. I love it. It's so brilliantly well done.
They get their tone just right. Those cutscenes.
Well, they're doing this interesting thing with this one where they're cutting together the film's dialogue with freshly recorded dialogue as well, and really expanding on the story in a really fun way that doesn't feel like it's kidifying it or like pissing on it. It feels like it's very reverent and sort of poking fun in a very inside way.
It's like all the original Lego Star Wars games were the same, where they were both taking the piss and incredibly reverential at the same time, and they absolutely get away with it. They really pull off both sides of the coin. They're really, really well made.
Yeah, so I'm actually looking forward to reviewing that if it comes in. So Richard will get away from a Lego game. Lucky boy. Okay, so 2 things left at Sony, and I think they closed pretty strong. First of all, we had the rockstar arrival of Hideo Kojima on the stage, which made me think the whole reason they had this massive stage was just so they could lift the curtain for him and then have this crazy panels lit as he walked down like he was the second coming of Christ. It was literally, they gave him the biggest entrance I have ever seen at an E3. It was huge. It's a shame he kind of fucked it up and mistimed the walk, but hey, it was still pretty damn cool. And then he showed us Death Stranding, and I'm still not sure what I saw. What the fuck was that trailer? Like, what?
No earthly clue. I thought they got the staging back to front here, didn't they? I mean, they didn't, obviously, but wouldn't it have been far more effective to show the trailer first, have it end with a Hideo Kojima game,
and then he walks up,
and then bring the man out?
Yeah, that would have been pretty sweet.
As opposed to have him come out and go, "Here's my game," and then,
you
show a bunch of weird shit.
Yeah, you show this weird ass trailer. You don't say who's made it. He then comes out, and then you give the card. It's a Hideo Kojima game. Yeah, that would have been way more impactful. But it was still pretty cool. So what we saw was naked Norman Reedus with an umbilical cord connected to a baby on a beach with a C-section scar. Then there was oil everywhere and loads of dead sea life. And then there were hovering figures in the sky. And yeah.
That pretty much covers it.
Yeah. It looked brilliant. I was confused
Brilliant.
and yet intrigued. I mean, by it looked brilliant, I mean it looked like Hideo Kojima's wet dream, which is what I wanted from a teaser trailer made by him. And yeah, I have no idea what that game will be. Nobody does. And I am certainly excited to see what the fuck that is. It's probably going to be a kart racer. Actually.
I was glad to see.
My first thought was a novel by William Golding called Pincher Martin, which is about a guy who's shipwrecked on an island, and it's kind of a purgatory tale. Not to spoil it, but you probably won't read it anyway. But it turns out he's dead all along, and his time on the island alone, shipwrecked with none of his mates there to support him, is kind of him coming to terms with his life and whatever. This struck a chord with my experience of that book. I think it seems to fulfill a similar role.
Yeah.
I think this guy looks like he is in purgatory. This is somehow coming to terms with the loss of childhood or something like that. I don't know. But
also the end of Lost as well.
Yeah, but it started with a quote from William Blake, so I thought that was my immediate thought. Was that, was it Blake or Golding that wrote that book? And I went to look it up, but it wasn't Blake after all. And I wondered if it was directly inspired by that book. But yeah, it just struck me as an interesting sort of echo of that novel. So
okay,
it'd be good to see what comes of that.
I think it looked fascinating and weird and creative and weird. And very, very weird, but well, that's what you want from Hideo. And it doesn't look like it's going to be a stealth action game, which is brilliant. You know, it's great.
And nice to see Kojima objectifying the male figure for once.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody knows. He was like, well, that's what happened to Norman after Silent Hills went by then. And it was like, well, everybody knows how the ladies love Norman Reedus. Let's show him naked. Yeah. And
you see his bum and everything. It's amazing.
You saw his bum. And
Did anyone else? Did anyone else expect to see Guillermo del Toro's name appear at the end?
A little bit.
I can see that. Yeah, it had that sort of feel.
Maybe it might still be the case, but they'll hold on to that announcement for a bigger reveal perhaps when they show more of it. That wouldn't be impossible.
With the collaboration with Norman Reedus, there's obviously still the flames of PT lingering there, aren't there? So maybe
you need to let it go, Richard. It's not happening. You need to let it go. You need to just let it go. Stop wishing for PT in Silent Hills. It's dead. It's buried. It's over. Just move on. But we had one more game, and this was a bit of a massive surprise announcement as well, and a big kind of crowd-pleasing, wider audience kind of announcement. All of a sudden we had Spider-Man on the screen, seemingly voiced over by the new Spider-Man as well. At least it sounded like the kid who's playing the new Spider-Man. It might not have been him. Looking like the new Spider-Man, but with some white sort of logos. And it turns out being made by Insomniac and exclusive to PlayStation.
Oh, that's a kick in the balls, isn't it? After Sunset Overdrive.
Mm-hmm.
Sunset Overdrive feels like the Spider-Man prototype now, doesn't it?
Yep.
Like that.
All of that mobility tech and all that mobility design that they put into that, they've now gone and got the fucking Spider-Man license and gone, oi, Microsoft, you screwed us. We'll go do this with Sony. And it's like, that's an amazing combination of license and talent. And I can't wait to see what that game is, because I feel like there's not been a great Spider-Man game since Spider-Man 2. And it looked, I mean, it was CG again, it wasn't in-game, but the idea of those people working together, I think it could be something special. Like, I'm not the biggest Spider-Man fan, but with Marvel having, control over the Spider-Man franchise now, even though Sony is still making it, and his introduction to Civil War, and the potential of how that film could be a real hit for them. You time those releases, could be massive. Could be massive for Sony.
It's about time we've got a decent superhero game that's not Batman, right? So yeah,
absolutely. And look, really cool. And that brought us to the end of the Sony conference. And before I let you guys go, I think I already know the answer to this, but let's have a little chat. Who won E3? Adam.
Sony. I just think Sony destroyed. I thought, as I said at the start of that talk about the conference, the thing that really struck me was the difference in the way Sony presents its products now compared to the way Xbox presents its products. And I think Sony, I think the way Xbox presents their products is starting to look quite childish. I think they're starting to look very kind of teen boy, action, explosion, boom, boom, big gun, ooh, awesome. And then Sony came in with a set of presentations that had real kind of artistic merit to some of them, and are pushing this idea of world building and much more kind of interesting experiences. And probably both companies are selling the same old third-person violence and nonsense, but Sony are packaging it in a way that says, hey, look, we're doing something cerebral and interesting, and Xbox are packaging it in a way of, hey, look, you can kill dudes with your mates and it's awesome. And I think that's a seriously emerging gap between the two companies now.
Well, very well put. Richard, do you agree or do you disagree?
I'd go along with that to an extent. I mean, there were elements of the Microsoft show that showed a more positive, collaborative side to play, like Sea of Thieves, that was missing from Sony's stand.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. By and large, it was a slicker, more mature presentation. It's always tempting to be seduced by new hardware, isn't it? But remember, the Xbox One S isn't really new. It's just a slimmed down version of what we've got, and the Project Scorpio console isn't anything yet. It's just vaporware. So until we see something more solid, I think I have to say Sony have pulled it out of the bag.
For myself, I still can't decide. It's just too close for me to call. After watching all these live and covering them all live, I felt very connected to Microsoft's conference. I was very much there with them. I think I had some real ups and downs, like you said, bookending with the hardware. It had some mature games in there, like We Happy Few and Inside, though maybe not in the triple A nature of the Sony's big ones. I do agree with Adam's presentation of it. The bombastic nature of Xbox is different to Sony's kind of quiet confidence, and the fact that Sony did such an amazing presentation without any hardware announcements, without any kind of like surprising hardware at all, and very little focus even on PlayStation VR, and just really just go into their core and being just like, yeah, we are making you fantastic gaming experiences. I can't quite call the difference, but I'm going to be really pragmatic and say it's a really, really good time to be a gamer. On whatever console you have, games are fucking awesome right now.
Yeah, so, well, I think the difference between the two, and you've got to remember, they're looking for different types of win. Sony have got their audience, and they're really just saying, well, this is what we're bringing you now. And they're comfortable where they are. They don't need to be shouting and saying, please come to us. And that's probably true, yeah. That's why Microsoft are where they're at, is because they're trying to get attention.
Yeah.
Well,
and it was a damn good E3 overall. Like, I think one of the things that really I noticed was, having watched E3s in the past, you do get very used to seeing game you like with number +1 at the end of it. And there was actually a lot of new IP shown this year, more than I think in previous years, or certainly more than the last time I really followed an E3 closely. There was a lot of exciting new stuff, so that was really good.
Loads of new IP. Maybe the weakest conference was EA, and that's only because they seem to be changing their business model a little bit. They've got a lot of games coming further out, so they didn't have a lot to show immediately. But there's a lot of promise there as well. So I think it's a great time to be a gamer. We've got loads of great games coming on the horizon. We've got loads of great games this year, and even more at the start of next year, weirdly. So absolutely tons of stuff, and we'll be covering it all here on BXB Games. That's been nearly 3.5 hours of podcast and video for you guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be back in 2 weeks on Sunday. Well, I'm going to go and sleep for a couple of days now. And thank you to both Adam and Richard for sticking with me for 3.5 hours today. That was a mammoth podcast, guys.
And to my wife for waiting. She's going to be furious.
Well, send her our love and thank her for her patience for me. And I will see you guys soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.